Knowingly fell victim to a malicious focus group that convinced them cinnamon-flavored Mountain Dew was the next big thing.
The people in the focus group, they couldn't get enough of it. And then they said, the more cinnamon, the better. So we are going to put in more cinnamon. We are really excited for people to try this product.
According to PepsiCo's data, all gathered from a single group of ill-intentioned respondents, customers of all ages will love the new soft drink's murky brownish-green color and will soon be lining up to try the carbonated beverage jam-packed with ground cinnamon. Various members of the focus group told reporters they believed the company had made a great decision.
Cinnablast is the best. I mean, I can't wait to tell all of my friends to go buy this thing.
Yeah. The only way they can make it better is if they took a couple of raw eggs, mixed them up in the bottle. People would go nuts.
This is the Onion News Network.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com. Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live. It's talk radio that you control. 603-283-6160 is the number for you to call to get in on the conversation with us. 603-283-6160. And with you in the studio tonight, it's me, Bonnie.
And Richie Rich.
And we'll be joined soon by Peakless Mountaineer, but
Maybe. That bum.
I know I was going to say, that Pumpkin Fest traffic is holding him up, I guess.
That's the lamest excuse. I'm calling him out on the radio. I also commute to the studio, and I didn't even know there was a Pumpkin Fest going on until I hit the detour. I'm like, I'm still going to be on time.
There was a detour. Just yesterday, Pumpkin Fest, I think, started, if not, was just like getting set up because there's a bunch of pumpkins downtown and like lights and stuff. And there was nowhere for me to get food with like less than a 25-minute wait of just going and picking up the food. And I was like, what's going on? And I was like, oh my God, it's Pumpkin Fest. All these hill people are coming out of nowhere. Like, we got to go into the city, Keene, because the Pumpkin Fest is going on. So
I had an article for show prep a week or two ago, and it was like a whole town of Vermont that shut down the town to outsiders during leaf peeping season.
Oh, like, I saw that you posted that.
Yeah.
And I thought that was like kind of cool.
Shut
to be
it
honest.
down. Like, no foreigners allowed. If you're coming to do the leaf peeping, too bad. You gotta go.
And now we are joined by Peakless Mountaineer. Welcome.
Glad to be here.
The single bearded son of a gun tonight.
Happens from time to time.
All right.
Got to bring more beard to the Free Talk Live just to balance things out, make the transition easier.
So he normally has more than one beard, is what you're saying?
Yes, he does. He usually has two beards.
The braids?
Yes.
It's still one beard. But you know who doesn't have a beard? Which is honestly kind of surprising because I feel like it would kind of maybe even out his head with his big bushy hair shape. Javier Milei.
Oh, okay.
He has
nice
a really strange head just because of the weird shapeless haircut he kind of has. It just looks so large. And it always makes me laugh when I see it. He looks like a werewolf or something. But I do kind of like him.
Very Trumpian 70s.
Yes, it's very 70s. It kind of looks like a host of somebody who used to be a co-host of this show, and I probably shouldn't say who. It looks like Teen Wolf. That's what he looks like. Is the title of this article from CBC is a chainsaw wielding libertarian could become Argentina's next president, and of course in the subtitle they have to say something that makes him sound really bad.
Worse than chainsaw wielding.
Yeah, well.
Or libertarian.
What there is that. What exactly makes you a chainsaw wielding libertarian? I've known a lot of flavors, but chainsaw wielding?
It's like if you've cut down a tree with a chainsaw, you're not necessarily like, oh, everyone knows him as the chainsaw wielder for the rest of your life. Okay. So what, did he chase someone with it?
Who knows? Maybe he dressed up as Leatherface one Halloween.
Or maybe this is just what they call you when you say, yeah, I'm going to remove things. Like, that actually doesn't need to exist. We're going to take that out of government. You chainsaw-wielding libertarian.
You're going to have a bunch of copycats at Porkfest now, or Porkfash,
God.
open carrying chainsaws, dressed like Javier Milei.
Isn't the thing they used to, maybe I'm completely crazy, but isn't the thing they used to set the wooden porcupine on fire a chainsaw? And, no, it's like
they wouldn't
two
use
weapons in one.
Yeah, they wouldn't use a chainsaw to set it on fire.
No, but
they would use it to cut the wood, potentially.
Oh, I don't know why. I just thought that there was something that was like a chainsaw and a flamethrower that they use. But maybe it's not a chainsaw, it's something else. I don't know.
I don't know, but I want to work with you on the design.
Yeah.
You're sitting on a gold mine.
Like instead of one of those guns with a bayonet on it, it's a gun with a chainsaw on it.
That's a thing. They have the chainsaw bayonet. So.
Nice.
I guess I didn't invent it. I'm not going to get rich.
But yeah, a chainsaw that is also a flamethrower sounds like a win to me.
I'm with you.
For like doing something in like a forest, if you're trying to deforest or, cut yourself out.
Roasting the gnomes for
right. But you have to take the card from Elon Musk and label it, this is not a chainsaw flamethrower.
Yes. Then it's okay.
That's how you get it through customs.
What did he do with that?
Oh, he labeled his flamethrowers, this is not a flamethrower.
Oh, okay.
That was the official name of the item.
It's also not a very powerful flamethrower. Like it's not mil spec.
It's like the one they use for creme brulees.
A little more than creme brulee.
Maybe Javier Milei was just a waiter, going and putting creme brulees on the table and baby flame. Oh wait, no, it's a chainsaw. They're accusing him of having.
They're not calling him a flamethrower wielding libertarian yet.
The flaming chainsaw wielding libertarian.
It says a chainsaw wielding libertarian could become Argentina's next president, and the subtitle says country facing high inflation, falling currency, and rising poverty. And it just, they try to make that sound like it's a cause and effect statement, because why,
right.
They just want you to associate the two things.
Yeah, they want you to think about this person and think about everything bad, and think about our people and think about everything good, even though they're the ones causing everything bad.
Right. Like if he wins and takes over and turns it around, right? Like what's the narrative going to be then? He's going in to he's going into a system that's already highly inflated, right? Currency depreciation, everything you just listed, and he's the libertarian that has a plan to fix it.
If he's truly going to go in and turn things around, and he's not just doing this Trump thing where he's pretending he is, then he'll probably get assassinated.
He seems legit, honestly, and I've been burned before by politicians, so I'm pretty careful. But
RFK.
He honestly seems to, he literally used to teach Austrian economics.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure he's actually going to do the thing where he says, no more printing Argentinian dollars. We're going to go to the American dollar. And I get the criticism on that, but number one, it is a move in the right direction that illustrates that it works, because it's a very long haul to move to actually good money.
Right.
Whereas moving to the dollar is going to get you in so much better of a place than Argentina is. It at least is proof of concept. And there's something that happens when you shift the tax base from money printing to money collecting, that it as bad as government is, it's way worse when they no longer care if you are productive at all.
So right now they're just printing because it's their own central bank. But if they were using another country's central bank, you're saying they'd have to collect it.
Right. They'd have
earn
to
it in a way.
Yeah.
They couldn't print it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't go as far as saying earn it, but their people would have to be productive enough that they could tax that productivity and then collect on it. Whereas right now, it doesn't matter if their people are productive or not. They can just print the money and it spends just as well.
So we have shared on this program and in other venues before the quote, absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So libertarian, Austrian economist professor gets the reins of the entire country. Will he then be corrupted?
Almost certainly.
Be interesting.
Okay. All right.
I don't know what rate at which he will be corrupted, but almost certainly he will be corrupted.
I wish we could have seen if that happened with Ron Paul, because he is more, I think, just like this guy has somewhat of a crazy bent to him, and Ron Paul is pretty level-headed, and it would be so much more interesting to see if he got corrupted.
So let me suggest,
what would that even look like?
Right.
It looks like Ron Paul. Here's the thing. Okay, I've said this before. I am not the biggest Ron Paul fanboy like most people are.
Why is that?
Because
Because he likes to be different.
No.
Edgy.
Edgy, fine. Edgy and different, but with reason. So Ron Paul.
Not Reason, the magazine.
Oh, yeah.
Not Ron Paul's magazine either.
No, he's got
His racist magazine article?
That's the one.
newsletter. So Ron Paul took a strategy of victory that libertarians wouldn't take, and he did so by putting an R next to his name in order to win. Right? So there's compromise principles even in that to a small degree. And then while in office, he is on record as voting no on all of these bills and laws and whatever that comes across his desk, Dr. No. But he also admitted to putting his own personal projects in there for his constituency, knowing that he could vote no and be Dr. No, but that would pass anyway, and that taxpayer funds would go to his county or whatever.
That does kind of suck.
And I think that's great. Good for him.
That's okay, but don't.
I think that's completely moral.
Well,
Don't
I would
put
have to
him
know
up
what
on
the
the
bills
pedestal.
were. If the bills were something that would cut down on government power, then it would be kind of a good thing.
No, it doesn't cut down on government power because
Yeah.
it's actually funneling federal funds
then why would he
to his
vote
constituency.
no?
Right.
Yeah, it was when he knew that these were terrible bills that were going to pass, spending bills, because they're always terrible.
Yeah.
So he knew these were going to pass, and he would put his own little pet projects in there to pay off his constituencies, pay off his local area organizations, and sort of feed back to the people who were helping him out. And I don't think there's anything immoral about that.
Okay.
I think that, look, if these things were going to pass anyway, it's not like he changed them in any. He didn't make
he's the
them
one that
more
put 'em
evil.
in.
But he's the one that put him in.
Well, I do want to pause, and we can come back to talking about Ron Paul, but it is a call-in talk radio show, so I'm going to go to your phone calls and thoughts. We have, it looks like Brad on the line in New Hampshire or Massachusetts. What's on your mind, Brad?
Hi, good evening. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a former New Hampshire police officer who was deprogrammed by Free Talk Live and became a libertarian. And I wanted to talk tonight about minarchism and some exceptions that I think are necessary to the no victim, no crime rule.
Boo.
Okay, well, start with one at a time, and then
I will
let's,
preemptively tell you you're wrong, but I'll hear you out.
Okay.
Let's do
All
one
right,
at a
well,
time instead of listing them out, and then explain yourself, what you think about it, and then I'll give the co-hosts a chance to respond.
Sure. So the first one is weapons of mass destruction. I think that in a libertarian state, the libertarian state, the people who are elected, can employ professionals that are able to handle things like nuclear weapons, which shouldn't exist in the first place, and things like biotoxins and things like that.
I want nuclear weapons sold in vending machines.
So at present, I think we have these weapons of mass destruction in the hands of the least responsible people on the face of the earth. And when it comes to biological weapons, I think that the best thing that we can do is let people figure out how to counter them. Like, sure, you can release, XYZ terrible disease, but if you let us figure out how to counter it, then we have some defense against it. Whereas right now, you have the most evil people on earth, because they were the ones who were willing to do the most evil things to get to the very, very top, who have their hands on the most powerful weaponry.
And I will also say that possession of property is not a crime, right? And you have to use that weapon in some form or fashion that creates a victim, and owning it does no such thing.
Those are the very principled answers to him, but I would just have to say it's not really it's not based in fact or anything, but I just believe that most people don't want to spend their time, and they're not smart enough and dedicated and, unified consciousness to where they're going to sit there and really put effort into it to create their own weapons of mass destruction in their backyard and then just shoot them off of people. Think of the objectives you'd have to have in your life. That's what you want to do. How many people are like that? And if we had a society that was a lot healthier, I think that we would be able to, if something like that's going on with your neighbor, I just think that in a totally libertarian society, it's a thing I just don't think would become a problem. And even if it was, I've never seen any problem that was solved just by someone writing on a piece of paper. You can't do that. Because people, if somebody wanted to do that, like right now, even though it's illegal to do that, then they would. But how many people are even attempting to do that?
Yeah, and one thing I'd like to point out is, so a nuclear weapon, yeah, I completely understand why that's an incredibly dangerous thing, but those are expensive. And think about, when was the last time that someone took their multi-million-dollar yacht and just slammed it into something for fun? Like, it's not a thing that tends to happen. So these very expensive things do tend to have a certain amount of regulation, in that if you don't have the sanity for wielding something powerful, you tend not to have the resources to acquire it.
Secession would be a lot easier if New Hampshire had a nuke.
That's true. Yeah, and that's one of the things where if you have, if you're aiming for the minimum amount of power to be centralized, then a lot of the most effective tactics in terms of self-defense are to have a couple of self-defense companies that do in fact have a nuclear weapon, just to get other countries to go,
Maybe
do
not.
I really want to invade New Hampshire? How about I don't do that?
Do you have any response for all of this, Brad?
Well, I just think these things are so dangerous that you can say, yeah, technically, if I possess a nuclear weapon, or if I have ricin, or if I have sarin gas, or if I have something like that, just having it doesn't hurt anybody. But the potential for destroying the nation is just too high, that the possession of these things should be, I believe, as a minarchist. And again, I respect that you guys are anarcho-capitalists and don't believe that a state should exist. But as a minarchist myself, I believe that the libertarian state should prohibit the possession of these things. And I only have two more other exceptions.
Well, hold on. What do you mean when should prohibit the possession of these things? So doesn't the authority that prohibits have the ability to own these things?
They would have to.
Right. I mean,
well, I don't think they should.
At the moment, I think that we're in the worst of all possible worlds in terms of controlling a nuclear weapon. I mean, the dementia patient that is currently in the Oval Office can suddenly decide that he wants nuclear explosions.
And he's already threatened people with
happen.
it. Remember, he threatened people with it.
Right?
There were like people that were saying they're anti-government or whatever, and he said, we have nukes, didn't he? Or was it a plane? I don't know.
There's also the difference between I don't think they should, and I'm going to actively stop them from doing. Right? Like I grew up in a gun-free house because my dad doesn't think that people should own guns, and so he doesn't. Right? But I did at one point because I make my own choices. Now if he, the gun-free guy, wanted to stop me, the gun-owning guy.
Oh, in his house, he allowed you to have one?
No, because I moved out and got several when I was here.
Yeah.
But growing up, like, he was anti-gun, like, did not like it when my mom got me the gun toys, the dart guns and all that other fun stuff. Wasn't prohibited in his house, right? But if he then later in life wanted to prevent me from obtaining those things, like a gun or a nuclear weapon, right? By what means would he be able to accomplish that? Right? If I acquired the nuke and you then all of a sudden try to oppress me by taking it away, then I detonate the nuke, right? That's the situation you're trying to avoid. You end up creating, right, by your overbearance on trying to take it away from me.
Most likely.
I think that's a lot of what's happening in international relations, at least officially, is, Russians don't think that Americans are good enough to have these powers. Americans don't think Russians are good enough to have these powers.
Generally correct.
And now they're very upset with each other, and they're like, well, maybe I'll use mine against you. Well, maybe I'll use mine against you. And we're all sort of stuck in the crossfire saying, please don't.
Or do it already so I don't have to go to work tomorrow.
Well, we're still on item number 1. What's your item number 2, Brad?
Item number 2 is traffic offenses. Now, I know this is probably going to make your eyes roll.
My eyes already rolled.
Quite a big difference. Disparaging or whatever the word is. That's a big
This is the
gap.
former cop talking.
Well, in a free market, I will definitely choose to go only on those roads that demand a basic competency of other drivers.
Right.
Well, having done a handful of death notifications, which are incredibly difficult to do, and literally stood in brains on the highway more than once, I believe that most traffic offenses should be allowed in a libertarian society. Most traffic laws should be allowed in a libertarian society, especially DWI, which I believe is so dangerous that it needs to be actively policed.
But what do you think should happen to somebody who owns a road and just decides they don't want to enact those on their road? Not the person who messed up and hurt somebody while driving, but you wouldn't be able to go after all of them. It's this company's road. What do you think should happen to that company? Get their road stolen from them?
I'm a cops, courts, and roads and national defense libertarian. And I think that if there's a private road, someone should have the right to say, yeah, you can drink and drive on it all you want.
Yeah.
But
I would recommend it.
But I think it's a terrible idea. And I've made probably close to 100 DWI arrests in 11 years. And it's seeing I've been in high-speed pursuits with drunk drivers. And it's just so dangerous that I think it's something that needs to be prohibited on a public road or a private road.
Whenever there's an accident between a drunk driver and a sober driver usually dies, and ironically, drunk driver lives. So if you want to survive that accident, best thing to be is drunk.
But the thing about it is...
There's a weird logic to that. Well, hold on. I just want to... I get what you're saying about really wanting to make sure that people have all their faculties while they're driving. But what I wonder is, what makes you think that a single entity trying to police this is going to be more effective than competing roads and competing methodologies for... I'm sure there's plenty of people who also want the people driving with them to be completely sober at the time.
It's the most important question, and it's what I always think anytime a minarchist says, oh, everything should be run by competent private competition, free markets, except these few things. It's like, well, why do you want these few things that you think are so important in the hands of the least competent, most corrupt, obviously just by the nature of the system entity? It doesn't make sense. If it's the thing you care the most about, you would want people who care more to be in charge of it, wouldn't you? I think that most people who owned a road would they would want their roads to be safe. So they would be incentivized to have some kind of rules on their roads. Like maybe there is something that, like a cop, more of a road security person that could even pull you over if you're driving like a crazy drunk person or whatever.
Or crazy in general, right? Like you don't have to be, you can be drunk. Yeah. You can be drunk
I don't think
maintain the lane, man.
I don't think most accidents are from being drunk. Like there's like 1,000 or 2,000 accidents every year in Texas. Deaths by accidents. And I can't see that being all... Because they list it on the highway.
Well, I think that Texas is an unrealistic standard of human behavior, especially when it comes to driving.
Yeah, it's true. It's pretty bad there. Any answers to that, Brad?
Well,
we can bring you back.
Not really.
You have another thing on your list, so we can bring you back on the next break. 603-283-6160 is the number to call to get on the air with us like Brad did. 603-283-6160. Don't go anywhere. It's Free Talk Live.
Are you making sense to the boomer mindset? I'm Holland Cook from survivalspeech.com. 80 million baby boomers comprise 25% of the population and control most of the USA's wealth. As aging parents pass on, they'll control more. Boomers are 46 to 65 years old and regard themselves as midlife. They identify as neither young nor old. They're post-minivan and pre-retirement, and they don't like being called boomers. They think me. Many of the purchases boomer couples make are individual purposes. They've been experimenters all their lives. If you want their attention, Tell stories and keep it simple. If something seems complicated, boomers can dismiss it as, I don't need this. And if you're looking for work, you may be applying to a boomer, so relate accordingly. From survivalspeech.com, I'm Holland Cook.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper with the Week in Review. This week, US President Joe Biden was among several world leaders to visit Israel. He met Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, but not several Arab leaders as planned, including Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas. His visit to Jordan to meet them was cancelled after an explosion at a hospital in Gaza killed roughly 500 people. Israel and Hamas each blamed the other for responsibility for the horrendous civilian death toll. FSN's Sarah Coates in Tel Aviv was following developments throughout the week and weighed up the impact of President Biden's visit.
A real whirlwind crisis trip for the US president, coming at a time that the US is once again reaffirming its support for Israel, and while this region is really teetering on the brink. He also levelled a warning at other regional players. We're talking namely here about Iran and Hezbollah, saying, if you're thinking about attacking Israel, the message remains the same as it has this past week. Don't.
Biden said he brokered a deal to get aid into Gaza, but it remained stuck for several days waiting to cross from Egypt into Gaza. The UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres visited the Rafah border crossing in Egypt to try and kick-start the delivery of aid to the more than 2 million Palestinians in desperate need of assistance. But as Ross Cullen in Tel Aviv reported on Friday, there were still a number of challenges facing the aid delivery.
There's some real issues in the infrastructure side of this. The roads in and around the Rafah border crossing on the Israeli, after the Israeli airstrikes in that area on the Gaza side have been cratered, potholed and damaged, and they have had to be repaired by Egyptian machinery being brought over from Egypt ahead of those trucks. As the works begin as a result of that, the Israeli airstrikes on the 10th and the 16th of October to try to repair the damage.
On Thursday, President Biden made an Oval Office address in which he urged Americans to get behind sending more than $100 billion of support to Israel and Ukraine. And he warned about the threats facing America and the world.
Hamas and Putin represent different threats, but they share this in common. They both want to completely annihilate a neighboring democracy, completely annihilate it. Hamas' stated purpose for existing is the destruction of the state of Israel and the murder of Jewish people. Hamas uses Palestinian civilians as human shields, and innocent Palestinian families are suffering greatly because of them. Meanwhile, Putin denies Ukraine has or ever had real statehood.
This week, the US House of Representatives remained in limbo. Far-right Republican Jim Jordan lost several rounds of voting, with staunch opposition from within his own party. From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live. It's talk radio that you control. 603-283-6160. And in the studio with you tonight, it's me, Bonnie.
Beakless Mountaineer.
And Richie Rich.
And 603-283-6160 is the number you can call to get on the air with us and talk about whatever's on your mind. It doesn't have to be on topic. It's just up to you. 603-283-6160. And we're going to go right back into the calls. We have Brad from the Northeast, from New England, on the air with us. And Brad is an ex-cop. He got deprogrammed by listening to Free Talk Live, which I think is just absolutely great.
We got one.
Some of our
Hopefully
finest
more.
work.
It's a success.
Hopefully more than just
That's
one.
where we aim.
Do you know, Brad, have you ever met any other cop that came to you and said that they stopped because they also listen to Free Talk Live? Oh. Sorry. I muted you. You're muted the whole time, so if you said anything, you gotta restart. Sorry.
Well, Sheriff David Hathaway. That's one.
Really?
Hey,
From
there you
listening
go.
to Free Talk Live, he stopped being like a regular cop or something? Or a DEA agent?
No. I'm sorry, I misunderstood you. I don't know anyone else who quit the profession because of Free Talk Live, but I would attribute my relationship with Ian towards leaving. And I just wanted to say, Bonnie, really quick, that I think you're doing a fabulous job running the family business, and I think your crew has come together, and you guys should be very proud.
Oh, thanks so much. I really appreciate it. Well, Brad was calling in. Oh, go ahead.
I have one more thing that's sure to make me many friends.
Okay, he's calling in telling us
moving into your territory, Rich.
I don't make any friends.
More of a minarchist than a libertarian. He believes in mostly free markets, but in a few areas he thinks that the government is necessary. He already listed driving regulations and
nuclear weapons,
ownership of nukes, or just weapons of mass destruction. So what's the third thing, Brad?
The third thing is sales taxes. Now, I think people should own their own I know. I think that property
it's the price of living in a civilized society, Rich.
No, we don't even have it here.
Yeah, we don't have it in New Hampshire.
And look at what kind of society we have here.
Think of the bears.
Think of the bears.
Well, I think
the potholes.
I think income taxes and property taxes need to go away. I think people need to actually own their property, because there's been so many times where a person works their whole life and then they get older and then they can't afford the home that they've paid the mortgage on because the taxes are too high.
Yeah.
So I think property taxes and income taxes need to go away. But to fund a small libertarian state, I believe there should be a small sales tax reflective of the type of thing like gasoline tax to fund the roadways.
Yeah, I just don't think it's the only way that a state, even if it had to exist, it's just not the only way that they could possibly make money. Like, there's plenty of cryptocurrency, harebrained ideas nobody was always bringing up on the show. Where
every
he's talking
solution requires a cryptocurrency.
Yeah, that's true. With nobody.
Well, a completely non-cryptocurrency way that some local governments have started changing the way that they gather their resources. So they usually have like a fund that is set aside. But basically, if you use that fund to invest in good investments, then you can reap the reward of those investments, and you can reach a point where the rewards of your investments are what is funding the government.
How rich people stay rich.
Essentially,
I survive off the interest.
Yeah, essentially that. And
you can too once you're as rich as me.
And that way you don't have to steal from the people to do it.
Do you have anything else to share with us, Brad?
I don't. I thank you very much for your time, and I appreciate the debate with good anarchists.
Thank you. I appreciate
reconcile
the
those and
too.
join us in anarchy, Brad.
Yeah, I just appreciate that he is all for allowing a free market in courts.
Yeah. There's a lot of good things that Brad believes. Thank you for the call again.
Not enough.
Yeah, I think that those ones, I think that his mind could be changed on that after a while, because I just don't think that there's very good arguments for it.
Yeah, the two things that always stick in my craw about X should be done by a violent monopoly is, okay, well, number one, we don't get good service that way.
Right.
Like, it always becomes corrupt. They always stop doing their job and do a bunch of things that aren't their job. And number two, it's proven time and time again with every single thing that there is a charity for and a government run essentially charity for, that the private charity spends 80% of their resources on average, 75-80% on the actual thing, and only 20% of their resources on running the organization. And it's backwards with government, where they spend 80% of it on overhead and 20% on accomplishing the thing.
And I hate to bring it up now that he's already gone, but like with the drunk driving thing, right? That's already illegal. Virtually everywhere.
That's a good point.
And he was talking about, standing in brains and how it causes harm. Like, it's already illegal, man. You don't have to make it more illegal. It's already there, and you've seen the results.
Isn't that desecration of a corpse standing in their brain?
Yeah, I kind of wondered a little bit about that. Like, did he mean really standing in it, or like accidentally? I don't know, but I didn't want to get into that on the air.
It's very Halloween-y, though.
Yeah.
If I saw a brain, I would totally stand on it.
You
Stand
would,
on it.
I'm sure.
Stand in it, whatever. I don't know. How many pieces is it?
How wet of a brain are we talking? Are we talking full puddle at this point?
Oh God.
Can I slip them on my shoes and go left lobe, right lobe, left lobe, right lobe?
The other thing about it is, the other day this guy was walking around knocking on doors for a candidate in our neighborhood, and Joa, he was outside of my house, so he started a conversation with him. I went out to take out my trash, and I kind of joined in the conversation. He was saying basically that he believes that cops are necessary, and I don't know how Joa started this conversation with them, but
Joa has a way.
Yeah, Joa is that's his job is First Amendment auditing, showing that what cops are like in real time and filming it. And so he got into this conversation with this guy who was really pro cop, and I asked him, I was like, so I didn't really expect his answer to be yes, but I could still make my point with it. I asked him, has there ever been a point in your life where a cop actually saved you from violence or being stolen from or anything like that? And he said, yeah, actually, when I was a teenager, some older kids took my phone, and I was telling them give me back my phone, and they were like, what are you going to do about it? And they were acting like they were going to beat me up, and a cop actually showed up and said, give him back his phone, whatever.
Wow.
And so I told him, okay, well, that's great that you have
It's the
an
one
answer for
time
that.
in the world that has happened.
So let's say it's true.
I will add a second if I must. I got hit by a car while riding a moped.
Yep.
And I got knocked out, and I woke up in the crosswalk. And luckily for me, quote unquote, luckily for me, there were undercover cops on the scene doing undercover cop work. So they
weren't
quick.
the ones that hit you, right?
They were not the ones that hit me, but they were the ones that protected me from getting hit by follow-up cars
While you're passed out on the road.
when I was on out on the road.
Did that car just
and
run?
call the ambulance. Yeah, they ran.
Dang,
so
that sucks.
so again, because there was a cop
Losers.
already on the scene, they were able to track him down as he drug my moped down the street.
But here was my...
The bad side of that is I woke up with a ticket in the
Dang.
hospital.
Wow.
After all that, here's all your stuff back, and right on top of all my property
For
was a
crossing
ticket.
at the wrong time or something like that?
No, it was for driving without a license because
Wow.
they asked for it while I was, woozy on the ground, and I didn't provide anything because why would I?
Well, so here's my thing with both of those stories. Anytime a cop has helped someone in real life, and if some listeners out there a cop helped me, so yeah, that's why I love cops, and they're not going to convince me. The thing is that impossible for a situation to happen where your community has funded private security and they also help you in that situation? Why is that so hard to understand? And when I said that to him, all he said was I'm from a black community in Miami, and you're acting so privileged to act like we can afford private security. It's just you're just living in this world where everything is so expensive because of the fact that you get so freaking taxed, for one thing, and for another thing, you can't use your imagination enough to think of it's not the same as right now, Kim Kardashian walking around with bodyguards.
Happy birthday, by the way.
Yeah, it's Kim Kardashian's birthday, so I thought of her. And also,
Happy birthday, Coconut.
and I was gonna say it's also Coconut's birthday, so he's 6 now. Oh my god, it's crazy. But
what is that?
I mean,
human
it's
years?
it's an extremely regulated industry.
Right.
I mean, number one, it's very, very regulated. Number two, it's something that people already think is being done. That is already covered by police. Therefore, we don't need it. And because of that, no one goes out and tries to get their own security in general. Whereas if that wasn't being covered by the government, it would be covered privately, just like everything else.
We covered a story, me, Lori, and Nikki, on Wednesday that was blowing all of our minds because I had never heard of something like this happening. It was in Minneapolis, pre-George Floyd. They had a racket going where every business, even businesses that didn't want security, but the city deemed they had to have it, was being forced to hire only cops, for off-duty cops, for security.
Oh, yeah.
And they were running up the prices they were only I have to work for $160 an hour, and they were being forced to hire them. And they would go off and answer cop calls or just sit in their car on their phones with their girlfriends or whatever. Yeah, I think the prices are obviously unnaturally high for something like a person that stays around the vicinity of a neighborhood you're in and responds to calls. It shouldn't be $160 an hour necessarily.
It's somewhere in Michigan, maybe Detroit. There's a free market alternative to the police.
Yeah, I think it's just Detroit.
Okay.
Somebody brought that up.
Okay. And they charge by the call. right? Like if they will respond to your emergency, but then you get the bill.
Yeah.
Right. So there's a disincentive to call them for random things that you don't need emergency, security response to.
That's a good idea.
But the agreement, it's a service you sign up for ahead of time. So if you do need them, right, you pay whatever the fee that they're going to charge, and you call, they show up.
See, it's just
do whatever. And so it's free market.
You don't even need a great imagination. It's already happening in some places.
And it's happening because the local police has abandoned that area.
Wow.
As far as security concerns go. Like you get no service from the cops, which you're taxed for, and then you have to subscribe to this service on top of that just to get the security you need.
Wow.
And I mean, I know that this is probably not something that everyone knows or cares about, but the inflation is the stealing that they do on top of all of the theft from the technology. So what should be happening, our technology has increased. We can do way more with computers than we used to be able to do. We used to have to do that, a lot of that by hand. We can outsource a lot of this to different areas of the world. Like all of this is labor saving, but we don't get to reap any of the benefits. Now, if we had a zero inflation, it would be just the theft of all of that technology increase. But instead, on top of that, they aim for at least 2% on top of what they're already stealing. So, yeah, you would actually be able to afford your private security, even at these inflated prices, if they weren't stealing all of that money from us.
It seems like everything that there's a problem with, that someone who's just now hearing about the ideas of not living under a violent monopoly, they will always say, oh, but, that can't happen because of this. It seems like behind every, that we can't be free because of X, there's an underlying problem that's even deeper, that it's the real problem. Like, for example, my sister's boyfriend, he lives in Oregon, and he is very understandably upset about all the crazy crime going on there, and he just blames, drugs got legalized there. But I always tell him, I'm just like, the thing is, drugs are also legalized in Spain, and they have pretty good crime rates, better crime rates than the rest of Europe, in fact. And I'm thinking of Portugal, but still
close enough.
And just other places, like cities in different places in the United States, you don't hear about, there's cities in Michigan and Massachusetts and definitely Colorado. Those are the only ones I can think of off the top of my head for sure that have completely decriminalized all drugs. And you just don't hear about the same stuff you hear about in Portland. Why? Because they have specific other things that have been going on for way longer that make their state a place that people want to flock to and do crime. Like, for example, they have basically mild weather all year. So they bring in homeless people in general. Homeless people often have a lot of just mental problems because they go through a lot, or their mental problems got them homeless in the first place. And then they have all these laws that give them a lot of welfare. They have no reason or incentive to do better in their life, or reason to live at all. So there's all these people with no reason to live, and they have terrible gun laws and all these other things I probably don't even know about because I've never really researched Oregon's laws, but I just know they're bad.
So yeah, you have all this additional danger and no ability to protect yourself.
Right.
Yeah, that makes for a very violent area.
Well, let's also acknowledge that poorer areas tend to be underserved by security services.
Right.
And a lot of these poorer areas are government subsidized, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's your subsidized housing, Section 8, welfare recipients. So it's also not fair to say that they would have money if not for the taxes, because a lot of these areas are tax recipients, right? Not tax spenders, or however that works, right? Their lifestyle is already getting subsidized.
And that's the problem to me. To me, it's not as much about they don't have enough money because they're getting taxed so much. Well, in the richer areas, they are getting taxed so much, but in the poorer areas, their problem is getting money from the government.
Right.
That's
if they don't get money from the government, they're not going to be able to afford security services.
So here's the thing. These are poorer areas. They need extra help.
Sure.
Now, we just discussed a moment ago how when the government steps in to help, you get 20% of the resources that are thrown at that.
Understood.
And you also get a ticket for being knocked out.
Right. as compared to the 80% that you get with a private charity.
Understood.
So all of those people, that would help these people in these areas, they've had their money directly stolen by all of this inflation, all of the money printing, and B, they are disincentivized to help these areas because they're supposed to be cared for by the government.
It is a good point to point out that even people who are getting their entire lives subsidized by the government, even they're still getting stolen from because of inflation. It's kind of a thing you forget about sometimes.
But you can't if they're net negative as far as productivity in the world and in the marketplace. There's no way that they're going to be able to afford protection services on top of that.
Well,
sure, and that's why charity exists, is to help the people that need the help. But like right now, okay, these are dangerous areas that the police do not like to go because it makes their job more difficult to go there. So
they're not able to arrest people for like having even like a pound of meth anymore.
Let's also suggest these dangerous areas for a private security firm is going to cost more to serve because of the enhanced
fair enough, but there are people who are really concerned with the people in these areas, and they are not legally allowed to provide protection services to these people that are underserved.
And that's also why I try to tell him I don't think the answer necessarily to Oregon was right now. Well, like, if every bad law went away at once, it'd be one thing, but to have all these terrible laws and then only take away the bad laws on drugs, I think it was done on purpose. It's the perfect storm of a place for, there are already tons of meth heads. Like, it's a huge place for meth and heroin and just like people using drugs in general. And then it's also a huge place for homeless people. They have all these bad laws. It was just like, you didn't start at the foundation of the problem. You started with something that would... Yeah. It's good for freedom. They had the
problems, and then they decriminalized the drugs, and they still have the problems.
Right. And in fact, now people have something to point at. Oh, it's just because the cops won't arrest people for meth anymore. As if that was helping before. Like, it's just more in the news now, for one thing. I mean, I'm not going to say it only is because I'm not there. But we do have some people on the line. Ricky in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. You're on the phones with us, Ricky. What's on your mind?
Thank you there, Miss Bonnie. Brother Richie, Peakless Mountaineer, good evening.
Evening.
What's on your mind?
Well, I just had to sit here. I'm wearing my battle flag corset, and I was sitting there, and I got a couple things to talk about.
Wait, battle flag corset?
No, I'm wearing my battle flag, of course.
Oh, of course. Okay, go ahead.
Now, no doubt. Now, here's the thing.
Because one does not call into a radio station without wearing one's battle flag.
No, absolutely.
Best use of toilet paper
have it
ever.
on the other way there,
I just wanted to know if there was like a man version of corsets.
There is.
Oh.
There is, no doubt.
They're called,
girdle? Just to give a little structure.
That sounds right.
A little structure here. I got a couple things to say about Brad. Then I'm going to reiterate about... my police reform plan that Brother Ian liked back in July. I think he'll like that. And then mention about taxes and solving that. Now,
what are you going to conclude with?
Well, No, I got this. I got it. Hang on. A couple things about Brad. Now, first of all, to start off, just from the beginning,
we got the whole
driver's
syllabus.
license ever since 1920, unconstitutional. So that's besides the point. Now, it's no secret that I do want to blow the U.S. Constitution away. Now, that comes into play. Now, let's think about this drunk driving thing. Now, this car, last I looked, belonged to that individual, and they're supposed to be under control of their own car, not belong to them. Now, question. Now, this guy says he has the authority to not only follow them, but chase them. Now, my question is, how many people did he give in danger in the process of this?
I always think that.
The thought of reckless endangerment come to mind. And potentially, if there's a victim, manslaughter. And that's point number one.
Oh, but they'll blame the drunkard who ran away.
Yeah, they were making us chase them.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I've driven...
No. Now, there's more. Now, also, he says, he says he's not brainwashed anymore. Well, I'm going to take a couple more points to that. Now, he also said about, taxes. Now, I'd already spoke to Miss Bonnie about this before. I'm going to reiterate this. See, I have canvassed this, and I know this will work here in the Commonwealth. Now, the way it works is very simple. You blow it all away: income tax, property tax, school tax, sales tax. Well, how do we pay for simple little things? Well, that's very easy. I know that'll work here. I'll canvass this. Very simple. What we do is we put forth a memorandum, and we put forth maybe, say, 1 or 2%. We choose. Okay, and we get the number. I choose 0. Right. Well, you can choose that. See, that's the best part of this if you live in Pennsylvania here. And I'm going to tell you how it works, because it's voluntary.
Right now?
Well, after I blow it away, it will be, because this is the idea.
Keep using that term.
Hey, I'm all for making what is currently a tax no longer a tax by making it voluntary.
And here's how it works. Here's how it works. It is voluntary. Now, because people, and I'll tell you what, people here love to be part of things, especially their government. So they will be more than happy to pay for their community. Now, not everybody always got the money. And if you don't got it, you don't have to pay it. Now, you said last time.
I got it. I still don't want to pay it.
Wait a minute. Miss Bonnie said last time, what if you're a millionaire? Well, I know one thing here in the Commonwealth.
There's no millionaires.
Everybody's going to know about that millionaire not paying. It's not going to be any secret. He won't be a millionaire long.
Rich.
So let's move on. Now, here's how about police reform. Now, Brother Ian liked this when I said it the last time. I do have a solution for police reform. Now, this is based on the demographic here in Pennsylvania.
Yes.
That's a joke for the record.
Can't say that when I'm on, Bonnie.
No, this is actually good. Now, Brother Ian liked it.
No, I'm ready to hear it. It's fine.
Okay, it's based for Pennsylvania. This probably won't work anywhere else. Now, here's how you do police
reform. What a useless example.
That I'm looking to do. Huh?
I said, what a useless example.
You know when you interrupt him, he has to start over, right?
No, it's real simple. Brother Ian liked it. I don't know if you're going to like it, Richie.
Told you.
Now, here's the thing. What you do is very simple. I'm looking to eliminate 80, possibly 90% of local cops. Number one.
I get 100, you got a deal.
Well, we got to reserve a small portion for places I don't even want to consider part of the Commonwealth, like Philly.
Respectfully disagree. Go on.
That being said, what do we now do? Very simple. We keep the county sheriff. Yes, we do. Now, there ain't no more U.S. Marshals and all that. That's all gone. Okay, but what we do is we need to add more deputies to the county sheriff. And
deputize everyone.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah. No, hold on. So that was actually what I was thinking about, like with the cop that helped him not get bullied. It's like, well, if you just had everyone have the training and the same a level playing field of expectation for your behavior, then anyone could just come up and make sure that those bullies don't bully.
Thank you for the calls. Well, we're going to bring it back when we come back. 603-283-6160. Don't go anywhere. 603-283-6160. It's Free Talk Live.
Free Talk Live. 3-year-old child lost his arm after being viciously attacked by a pit bull terrier earlier this month.
Gosh.
Now the incident has moved a state lawmaker to author legislation that will effectively ban the pit bull breed in the entire state of Oklahoma.
Wow. Wouldn't all of Mr. Wesselhoff's constituents be a little safer if we all just couldn't have any dogs at all?
That's true. It would guarantee that no one would be bitten by dogs.
Right, and no
What
cats.
about cats? They scratch people.
They do scratch people, and it leaves a nasty infection.
It could, certainly.
Certainly.
We should ban infections, too, while we're at it. I mean, while we're protecting everyone from everything.
Birds can carry the flu, we know that.
We should just exterminate all animals with teeth.
Well, forget the teeth. Birds have no teeth. I say we kill them all.
Just every animal.
Yeah.
Okay. What about insects? You could just sign a law that bans mosquitoes.
That'd be great.
Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern at freetalklive.com. Eleutheromania, the insatiable desire for freedom. It's the new 3-song heavy metal EP from Captain Kickass. Available now on your favorite music app or get it directly from CaptainKickass.com.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 2 is next, after the news, here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper with the Week in Review. This week, US President Joe Biden was among several world leaders to visit Israel. He met Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, but not several Arab leaders as planned, including Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas. His visit to Jordan to meet them was cancelled after an explosion at a hospital in Gaza killed roughly 500 people. Israel and Hamas each blamed the other for responsibility for the horrendous civilian death toll. FSN's Sarah Coates in Tel Aviv was following developments throughout the week and weighed up the impact of President Biden's visit.
A real whirlwind crisis trip for the US president, coming at a time that the US is once again reaffirming its support for Israel, and while this region is really teetering on the brink. He also levelled a warning at other regional players. We're talking namely here about Iran and Hezbollah, saying, if you're thinking about attacking Israel, the message remains the same as it has this past week. Don't.
Biden said he brokered a deal to get aid into Gaza, but it remained stuck for several days waiting to cross from Egypt into Gaza. The UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres visited the Rafah border crossing in Egypt to try and kick-start the delivery of aid to the more than 2 million Palestinians in desperate need of assistance. But as Ross Cullen in Tel Aviv reported on Friday, there were still a number of challenges facing the aid delivery.
There's some real issues in the infrastructure side of this. The roads in and around the Rafah border crossing on the Israeli, after the Israeli airstrikes in that area on the Gaza side have been cratered, potholed and damaged, and they have had to be repaired by Egyptian machinery being brought over from Egypt ahead of those trucks as the works begin as a result of that, the Israeli airstrikes on the 10th and the 16th of October to try to repair the damage.
On Thursday, President Biden made an Oval Office address in which he urged Americans to get behind sending more than $100 billion of support to Israel and Ukraine, and he warned about the threats facing America and the world.
Hamas and Putin represent different threats, but they share this in common. They both want to completely annihilate a neighboring democracy, completely annihilate it. Hamas' stated purpose for existing is the destruction of the state of Israel and the murder of Jewish people.
This week, the US House of Representatives remained in limbo. Far-right Republican Jim Jordan lost several rounds of voting, with staunch opposition from within his own party. FSN's Benji Heyer sent this report from Washington.
It was not the day of triumph that Jim Jordan had hoped for. Congress's lower chamber remains dysfunctional, rudderless, with huge implications at home and abroad. Without someone wielding the gavel, legislation, including on aid for Israel, simply can't get passed by lawmakers. Speaker-designate Jordan could keep fighting, though the maths isn't in his favour. Republicans may have to look for another, more moderate candidate to coalesce around to fill what Congressman Ken Buck describes as the worst job in America.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks. We heard yesterday one version of what might happen in Gaza, the concept of a UN trusteeship overseeing the governance of the territory instead of Hamas. But now another idea has been put forward after Israeli government leaders said a ground assault on Gaza could begin at any time. So why has it taken nearly 2 weeks for the much-anticipated ground offensive to begin? And what is its aim in Gaza beyond neutralizing Hamas as a political and military force? In Tel Aviv, we hear again today from reporter Noga Tarnopolsky.
The Israeli leaders who were caught by surprise by this really cataclysmic terror attack, they were unprepared. I have not heard any mention of what the plan is post-invasion. Yeah. And Israeli opposition leader Yair Lapid, who's a former prime minister, he said that the Israeli people need to hear more than just, we're going to invade. They need to hear what comes next. And he proposed the future leaders of the Gaza Strip, once Hamas vanishes, should be the Palestinian Authority, that is the internationally recognized Palestinian government in the West Bank.
But all that presupposes Hamas will indeed vanish, and that the people of Gaza are willing to be governed by someone else. The stakes are high, and the outcome still very uncertain. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
And that was the Week in Review. That's Feature Story News. Nick Harper reporting.
This is the Onion Week in Review. This week, mothers across the nation invented a new drug to worry about, confirming that the completely fictitious new substance was appearing in schoolyards across the nation and is easily created from simple household products like sugar, window cleaner, and petroleum jelly. Calling the totally made-up narcotic scramp, mothers in desperate need of something to fret over deluded themselves into constantly agonizing over the widespread drug epidemic that exists solely in their minds.
My son sits in his room for hours and hours. It must be scramp. He's a scramp head. I bet they'll figure out how to scramp with this too.
In other news, a man confidently strides through a beaded curtain without parting it. A father takes a picture of his daughter every day from birth until he abandons his family. And the same homeless man is always begging for change on the same United flight. Stalled contract negotiations have prevented me from reviewing any more news until I receive a co-producer credit. But for more, visit theonion.com/newsbeat.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com. Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live, talk radio that you control. 603-283-6160. That's the number for you to call to get on the air with us. 603-283-6160. And in the studio with you tonight, you've got me, Bonnie.
Peakless Mountaineer.
And Richie Rich.
And we have Ricky is still on the line, so I'm going to go back to his call. In the last segment, no! Ricky, what was Ricky talking about in the last segment?
He'll tell us again. Don't worry.
Sure.
Oh, yeah, his plan for getting rid of taxes if he was able to blow the Constitution away, he said.
Blow them all away.
Yeah,
blow
to
it all
blow them
away.
all
If you
away.
put Ricky in charge, this is what you
It
get.
won't be me, but it will be we. I'll just be the vessel there, Miss Bonnie. Now, back to police reform. Now, this
Nice
Brad,
political
he
speak.
said he's a libertarian. I'm a Confederate Democrat and a Jeffersonian. I'm so much closer to a libertarian than this status, I promise you.
You can just
But
say racist and
nonetheless,
skip all that long speak.
no doubt. All right, Mr. Ritchie. You're a jackass, but you're a lovable jackass.
Oh, my gosh.
Anyway, nonetheless, police reform now. Now, except for the Pennsylvania troopers, I'm keeping them. Now, they're going to be reserved for what they're good at. What they did
Dunkin'
200
Donuts.
years ago. An elite force, not going out there for arguments and that. Okay? And by the way, New Jersey, New Hampshire, these are just state cops. The only troopers are Pennsylvania troopers. But nonetheless,
I thought they're state troopers here.
I'll take the super troopers in
cops
one.
gone.
Right?
First of all, 90% of local cops gone. Now, nobody get paid, by the way, but this is free.
How are you going to keep the other 10%?
How are you going to make them continue doing things for free? You think cops should become
the
slaves?
joy of bullying.
I will tell you, Miss Bonnie. Now, the county sheriff's still there. Sheriff deputies, as far as what they can do is elevate. They just serve papers now. But see, what we're going to do is every town have something that's forgotten, and this is something chosen by the people called a marshal. And that marshal going to have deputies. He don't get paid either. He got a real job. He got a life. You know,
Okay.
he lived right there, and he know the community.
I
And,
just-
you know,
I gotta put you on pause because I gotta say, even if Ricky came out with some kind of brand new plan no one's ever thought of before that was super great and it sounded like a really good idea. If you're leaving this system intact at all, it's going to grow like in a few years when Ricky from the Commonwealth dies and he's no longer the vessel.
Yeah, I mean, just like the first caller, I think that all of these people who think that you can have a minarchist state, number one, you are not paying attention. America was the ideal experiment. Like, you literally cannot imagine a better circumstance, like between allies to the north and south, oceans to the east and west. You don't have to be bothered by anyone. It was the best possible circumstance. You had these moral people who hated overreach of authority, and none of it worked.
And then as soon as you got all that, you got the Whiskey Rebellion.
Yeah,
ruined it all.
right away.
Yeah,
well,
immediately we moved into tyranny, and at this point we've become the most powerful empire on the earth because that's what happens when you have a minarchy.
Who would have thought back then that we would be, sending a bunch of money to a place called Israel in the future? That's this little place in the Middle East that no one living there would even know what it is. I guess it'd be like Jordan or something back then. And they, sending money and bombs for them to bomb another place in the Middle East with this whole plan that it was going to be like, we don't, bother with anyone but ourselves. It's grown to crazy extremes, like more bad things than just that. Thank you for the call, Ricky. I just don't really see a good plan for making, this sheriff is just going to do his job because our people will vote for the best sheriff, and then...
But Ian would have liked it.
I don't know if I can believe that, but...
Well, see, we keep the 10% because when they show up to do things, they get to steal all your money.
And that's how they get paid.
That's how they get paid.
Oh. Well,
they get to plunder wherever they go.
That way everyone learns. Don't call the cops.
We have another caller on the line. We have Sarah in New Mexico. Sarah, what's on your mind? Calling a little early. Oh, I don't have her muted. Sarah, I don't know if you hear us. I'll just put her on.
Oh, yes.
I'll just put her on.
I was walking down the street in New Mexico, and this car ran really fast by me.
Oh my gosh.
They need to put up the red lights.
Yep, they have those. They have red lights there. They just don't listen to them, I guess.
I just think that we could just get a lot more tickets, and then there would be less of these crazy drivers.
Yep, that's basically a Sarah
Thank
call.
you,
I guess we
Sarah.
don't need to answer her. I think we should just go back to the article about Javier Milei, the potential next president of Argentina.
Not just potential next president. Chainsaw-wielding libertarian.
Yeah.
Let's be clear about this.
A chainsaw-wielding
libertarian.
Libertarian who could become Argentina's next president. So I guess that's very
looking more
important.
likely by the day, somehow.
Every time I look at him, I want to cut his hair.
Speaking of his hair and his looks, I finally found the guy who he's imitating with like the sideburns and everything. It's Jose de San Martin, known as the Liberator in Argentinian history.
Oh. And has he like said that, or is it
Yes,
just kind of obvious? Oh wow.
Yeah, I couldn't
So he's
remember
the second coming of the Liberator.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
He's
All
the
right.
second coming of the Liberator.
What a cool
That's
name.
why the wacky sideburns and the crazy.
Yeah, that's what I was looking at right now. I was like, his sideburns look like they have like split ends, and I've never really seen that before.
Oh, I thought you were going to go somewhere else. The sideburns look like they have a life of their own.
Yeah, that too. Well,
Which
the
is
whole
what I
head
think
does.
of Trump's hair.
It's the
I
onion
think that
loaf.
when he sleeps, it leaves and has a life of its own. It returns as a symbiotic entity.
One time I saw just this like dead dry grass on the side of the road that looked more like Trump's hair than anything I've ever seen. I took a picture. It was so funny. And that was in New Hampshire somewhere when I was knocking on doors.
What if it came out in the mugshot that it was actually a toupee this whole time?
Trump's?
No, I think
I think it
it's
is.
legitimately his hair. He just, instead of a comb over, it's like a comb forward.
Okay.
But he has like the very best money can buy, like
Yeah.
tying the comb forward into the like 5 hairs that he still has in the front.
And he probably gets plugs, as that's what they call it. They can add more hair.
Those usually look pretty obvious when you first get them.
It's true.
Well, we know somebody else who has a comb up, like you're saying.
Yeah, the pompadour comb over.
Mark from there. He just like has his hair combed directly up. I don't know if it just sticks up like that. I'm always looking at it when he's talking. It's like his hair sticks up like 3 inches off the top of his head and then kind of falls over.
Yeah. Yeah, the most innovative
Trump
way
has the
I've
same thing.
ever seen of dealing with that was like, okay, so imagine like a mohawk, but it's in a U shape.
There's nothing wrong with Mark's hair because of it. It just kind of makes me laugh. It has a mind of its own looking. You know, like it looks like somebody sat there with a blow dryer and purposely forced it to do that, but it looks like it's just natural.
Teased it up there.
Yeah.
Aquanet.
Literally.
Get that 80s wave going.
Well, let's get into this article from CBC. I think CBC Canada. It's cbc.ca. Chainsaw wielding libertarian could become Argentina's next president. Argentina may be about to leap into the political unknown. The South American country, the region's number 2 economy after Brazil, will vote in presidential elections on Sunday with a radical outsider, libertarian Javier Milei, in pole position to win, though he will likely face a second-round runoff. The wild-haired, chainsaw-wielding economist, and of course they don't explain that. Oh, I see. They do explain it later.
Keep reading, buddy.
All right. Now I'm excited.
Who has risen from relative obscurity over the last year, came top in an August open primary, and that means they voted for all candidates, and he got the most votes out of all of them instead of just his own party. All the parties
stopped there. Gave it to him.
Yeah.
Here are the keys to the kingdom, Mr. Milei.
Right.
Let's see
I
what
think
your
he'll win.
libertarian can do.
Just from, I don't know. I just think he'll win. That would just be my guess. I don't have
I
actual
hope
reason.
he does.
Me too. It would be fun to see him.
Me 3.
Entertainment for anything else.
I mean,
Right.
honestly, everyone should hope that he wins at least for entertainment
Right.
value.
It says he came up on top in an August open primary and leads all opinion polls ahead of Economy Minister Sergio Massa and conservative Patricia Bullrich. Milei, 52, is a poster child of Argentine voters' anger at inflation that may hit 200% this year, rising poverty levels, and a sliding peso currency that erases the real-world value of people's salaries and savings.
Daily. If it's 200% annually, that's a daily problem.
Yeah.
That's like, don't go to work. Like, why would you?
It says many blame the political elite and have latched on to Milei's burn it all down rhetoric. He has used the chainsaw throughout his campaign to symbolize how he will slash government spending and waste.
There you go.
Oh.
That's pretty great.
All right. Awesome.
Okay, there's immediately a picture that's showing me an example. That's pretty funny. He looks scary. He said, I'm not interested in politics, but Milei, oh wait, not him. Sebastian Pizzo, 33, a restaurant employee in Buenos Aires, says, I'm not interested in politics, but Milei is a clean slate. He may be crazy, but at least he says what he thinks. The vote marks a major crossroads for Argentina, one of the world's top grains exporters, the number 4 producer of electric battery metal lithium, and a growing shale oil and gas play that has been luring investment and interest from Asia to Europe.
So I'd like to just point out what a sneaky little technique that is. Is like, okay, so I'm sure they asked a whole lot of people what they thought about this guy. And this was the soundbite that they're like, okay, this is what we want to think, what we want people to think
He's crazy.
other people think about him. It's like, oh, well, we want you to think that, well, I don't care if he's crazy. He's honest. So they say, this guy says this, as if that was representative of something, which it may or may not be. So you find that in a lot of publications where they want to just manipulate the way people see the event.
I mean,
well, I'll take it anyway. If they have that much exports and natural resources and they're still screwing up the currency,
right?
Then something needs to change because you can't be that good, that valuable on the world stage and still be poor.
Without
you can. Have you seen Venezuela?
I got it.
They have oil and not a little bit.
But he's saying without sucking, without doing a terrible job and needing to be slashed up. Or,
like
you said.
Venezuela is a good example too. That's not a Venezuelan reserve problem.
Right.
That's a political problem that they're mismanaging the natural resources of the country.
Right.
We do have a caller in line. Unscreened caller, you're on Free Talk Live. What's on your mind?
Okay, I just had a question that has nothing to do with what you guys are talking about.
That's fine. What's your name?
Okay. My name's Phil.
Okay. What's on your mind, Phil?
Okay,
Mr.
my
McCracken.
question is, How? Okay, I have a question here. What is a good way I can convince the fiance to move up to New Hampshire? I got her out of New York City. I got her to Massachusetts.
Whoa.
But it's just that little bit more north, and we'll be good.
Wait, first I gotta say, I thought you said Beyonce, and second of all, then I realized you said fiance. And your question is, you're asking...
How do we convince Beyonce to come
Right.
up to New
I was
Hampshire?
like, Make her wait, jealous who by got her to dating do a what? native.
There you go.
So, yeah, I don't think that's a good idea to make her jealous by dating a native in New Hampshire. But...
Yeah,
I don't know enough about her. Like, give me a little bit about her. You know, like, what does she like to do? What are her interests?
Let's see. She likes to do stuff for the Libertarian Party, but she's pretty statist.
We have
She's a
here.
statist?
She doesn't. Yeah, she doesn't. She thinks that a lot of the libertarians there suck, and I don't know. She has like an issue with like some people up there.
Well, a lot do suck, definitely.
Which libertarians does she like? Like the New York libertarians?
Yeah, well, she was the chair of a party there.
Oh, okay. So she likes being the big fish in the small pond.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I don't know. This is something you'd have to like talk over with her, but maybe you could convince her. Just because there are like a small group of libertarians that suck in the Libertarian New Hampshire Party, and Richie Rich and Lee might disagree with me on that. But it doesn't really give you an excuse. Like, what? If you actually care about these ideas, shouldn't you want to come to the place that has the biggest chance and that you have more chance of influencing it for good? I mean, I am not a Libertarian Party believer.
Yeah. So my question to you is, what does she really value and care about?
I don't know. She
You're
grew
her
up in
fiance
San
and you don't know what she
Francisco.
cares about? Come on.
Well, I do. I do. I mean, she wants to live in the big city, and I grew up in New Hampshire, so it's kind of my spot. I actually moved to Hawaii to move to New York City on a whim to try to make this work, and it kind of did. But
let her commute down to Boston, right? Just like barely cross the border and just let her have fun in
That's
Boston.
such a good point. Like,
It's right there.
like living in cities, and I also sometimes get a little bit bored and keen, but if I really was that bored, I could always go to like Boston, and then I find myself thinking, yeah, I don't want to do that.
The food's better, the events are better, the traffic is much worse.
yeah, I mean, like, I love New Hampshire. Like, the thing is, like, we go up to New Hampshire, we have a good time, and like, I'm like, and then she's like, nah, I don't want to live in Nashua, man. And it's just, I'm trying.
Nashua's like the
What about
safest
Keene?
city in the world right now.
Yeah,
in the
I
country.
heard that. That it's the safest city in the... That really shocked me.
There's no way she would move to Keene.
Yeah, it's more out in the middle of nowhere.
If she's a
Yeah, but-
statist libertarian and probably doesn't want to be in Keene anyway.
Well, so my
Well, she works for John Stossel, so there you go.
Yeesh.
Wow.
Huh.
Would she not be able to keep the job if she moved, or is she able to do it remote?
Well, I think she's quitting, so.
You should parlay that into moving John Stossel to New Hampshire.
Hey, there you go.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. The most obvious route, I would think, to getting her eventually into New Hampshire is children.
Oh, I really hope she doesn't hear this.
So I think that generally when women have children, some of the things that change about their priorities, one, they're less concerned with having a really interesting, exciting social life in the city because they have a life that has, meaning and purpose and really demands their attention and
Care more about
rewards
safety.
them for it.
Knock her up.
Are you guys
And-
intending to have children, Phil?
Well, I want to, like, I mean, but I mean,
Jeez.
like.
So
we
she doesn't
talked
want
about
to,
it.
is what you're saying?
Well, she didn't want to, but now she's game. So
I don't know. It's just kind of like well, you guys are getting married and everything, but I just don't really know what to say because typically I like,
Make it up, Bonnie.
I like to tell people that I like to give people advice who like, if they're just trying to go after someone and they just don't have really the confidence to do it. I like to convince them to do that, but I don't really like to convince people to, force something that's not working. to stick together, if I'm just being 100% honest. Like, you've mentioned so many things that sound like you guys just don't click. Like, you don't want to live in a place she wants to live in. You had to convince her to want to have kids. If she's only wanting to have kids to stay with you.
Oh, no. We talked about it. She tries to be edgy and, like, especially, like, I don't know. And, like, she's had all these, like, weirdo libertarian dudes scheme on her, so.
I'm sure.
There's a lot of us.
Well,
yeah, and
it's really hard.
Yeah.
I can't really help you much more because basically, like, I totally understand. I get really bored even in Keene sometimes, and Keene is, in my opinion, the only place I would want to live in New Hampshire. But I also, like, I came from a large city, but not New York City large. I wouldn't want to live in a New York City place. I lived in San Antonio.
If you bring her around the libertarian chicks around here, she's going to be polyamorous pretty soon, and then it's a whole nother thing to worry about.
No, that's not going to happen. But,
well,
yeah, like, I mean, like, I want to start, you know, like, I've met a few people up there. I've been to the clubhouse and on the seacoast, wherever, where Dover or whatever. And I don't know. I want to be more involved. I think that's the big thing. But she has like this weird, the Mises people suck. I don't know. There's the whole infighting thing.
There's not even a Mises caucus in New Hampshire. That's what's so confusing. Like, the Mises caucus doesn't like New Hampshire, and the New Hampshire party seems to not get along with them, but for some reason we keep getting called that. I mean, the New Hampshire people keep getting called that. I'm not even a part of it.
Mises people up there.
There's a lot of Mises people up here. That's not wrong. They may not all be in Keene, but they wear the polos.
Like,
you can identify
in
them.
Ideal, right? I thought there was no Mises caucus.
There might not be a caucus, but there are libertarians in New Hampshire, maybe just Manchester, that wear the Mises caucus polo shirts. Like, again, they're easily identifiable.
See, I really thank you for the call, Phil. I just think I can't really help anymore because I have such different priorities than his fiance. It's like I would not want to live in Manchester where all of the most libertarian party stuff is going on. So, and then she wants to live in a really big city. Well, then you can't live in New Hampshire if that's what you actually really, really want. But you could live in Nashua, which is the safest city apparently right now, and then drive to Boston, which I've never been to Boston. Every time I've ever had
you're not missing out.
Reason to, it doesn't sound that appealing to me, but I don't want to say it sucks when I've never been there or anything, but that's what I hear from everyone, everybody. And I also get a little scared of how bad the driving would be. I definitely don't want to go there half the year because there's ice everywhere on top of bad driving. And then the other thing is that my husband was locked up in Keene, New Hampshire for 2.5 years. So I just haven't been there, and I can't really give him better advice because of those situations.
Yeah. I move to Boston, and then you can commute up to New Hampshire, do the New Hampshire things.
They could do that.
I wish I knew what it was that was bonding them.
Right, exactly. That's what I was kind of trying to imply to him, that it didn't sound like they had a lot in common. But I'm sure...
Sounds like it's her.
It's harder for them to... It's probably hard to just explain in a quick radio station, why you guys work, and they might work out, or, work without us being able to understand.
From the experience of a single guy, right? I have been set in my convictions.
Your relationship status is such a question mark to me.
Well, no, but from my personal experience.
Either way, he has...
I just didn't know he's single.
Now, do you mean a single as in unattached guy, or did you mean an individual human being? Or
both.
Oh.
But let me get to the point, and then you can discuss amongst yourself. Right, I've been so set in my convictions that I have declared to my mate at the time, right, that this is what I'm going to do. You can come with me or not, right? And my high school sweetheart moved from Hawaii to Spokane, Washington, while I was going to college, right, to be with me. My ex, we moved from Hawaii to New Hampshire. Right, just I'm going. You
the furthest you could possibly get without going to Maine, I guess.
Yeah,
almost the furthest you can go.
And then when that broke off, I imported another one from Hawaii to come here as well. So this is where I am. If you want to be with me, this is where you have to be.
You just got to learn to get that pull and then move to New Hampshire alone.
And I will find someone who will.
Yeah, and confidence is
someone.
sexy. I mean, that's just universal truth.
603-283-6160. You can always call in for relationship advice from me. Hopefully I'll do better next time. 603-283-6160.
I've been told no in many different ways.
I give you an order and you're going to obey it.
George, you can go this way. You can do that and you have to leave here.
You cannot bring signs into the rally.
Walk with me. Well, I'm comfortable here, actually. Whoa. Hey. Who do you think you are? Excuse me.
There is no video or audio allowed in this office.
No, I have work today.
You ain't gonna make it.
Wait a minute. Hey! Oh my God! Unbelievable! Why are you running from me? Because you're scared me. What am I being detained for?
You're being served.
What is this?
You're being served.
What is this? Bureaucrats have a funny way of telling people no.
That's the sound of the men working on the chain.
Derek J's Victimless Crime Spree. Watch it for free and order the Director's Cut DVD at victimlesscrimespree.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper with the Week in Review. This week, US President Joe Biden was among several world leaders to visit Israel. He met Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, but not several Arab leaders as planned, including Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas. His visit to Jordan to meet them was cancelled after an explosion at a hospital in Gaza killed roughly 500 people. Israel and Hamas each blamed the other for responsibility for the horrendous civilian death toll. FSN's Sarah Coates in Tel Aviv was following developments throughout the week and weighed up the impact of President Biden's visit.
A real whirlwind crisis trip for the US president, coming at a time that the US is once again reaffirming its support for Israel, and while this region is really teetering on the brink. He also levelled a warning at other regional players. We're talking namely here about Iran and Hezbollah, saying, if you're thinking about attacking Israel, the message remains the same as it has this past week. Don't.
Biden said he brokered a deal to get aid into Gaza, but it remained stuck for several days waiting to cross from Egypt into Gaza. The UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres visited the Rafah border crossing in Egypt to try and kick-start the delivery of aid to the more than 2 million Palestinians in desperate need of assistance. But as Ross Cullen in Tel Aviv reported on Friday, there were still a number of challenges facing the aid delivery.
There's some real issues in the infrastructure side of this. The roads in and around the Rafah border crossing on the Israeli, after the Israeli airstrikes in that area on the Gaza side have been cratered, potholed and damaged, and they have had to be repaired by Egyptian machinery being brought over from Egypt ahead of those trucks as the works begin as a result of that, the Israeli airstrikes on the 10th and the 16th of October to try to repair the damage.
On Thursday, President Biden made an Oval Office address in which he urged Americans to get behind sending more than $100 billion of support to Israel and Ukraine, and he warned about the threats facing America and the world.
Hamas and Putin represent different threats, but they share this in common. They both want to completely annihilate a neighboring democracy, completely annihilate it. Hamas' stated purpose for existing is the destruction of the state of Israel and the murder of Jewish people. Hamas uses Palestinian civilians as human shields, and innocent Palestinian families are suffering greatly because of them. Meanwhile, Putin denies Ukraine has or ever had real statehood.
This week, the US House of Representatives remained in limbo. Far-right Republican Jim Jordan lost several rounds of voting, with staunch opposition from within his own party. From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live. It's talk radio that you control. 603-283-6160. And in the studio with you tonight, it's me, Bonnie.
Beakless Mountaineer.
And Richie Rich.
And you can call that number to bring up whatever is on your mind. It's 603-283-6160. Just like the last caller, Phil, we were talking about Javier Milei, but he called in for relationship advice. That's totally fine. That's what the call-in line is for you to bring up anything that's on your mind, even if it's not on topic. In fact, that kind of makes the show more fun to me. But I also want to hear what you have to say about this article about Javier Milei.
The chainsaw-wielding libertarian.
Thank you. I was just trying to, finish swallowing because I just, tried to eat a whole bunch of
need to know, Bonnie.
cereal right before the break.
Where's your stagecraft?
I don't know. Captain always gets mad at me when I explain things.
Spitters or quitters?
Oh, my God. Anyways, cereal, if you didn't hear what I said. So, we're talking about Javier Milei.
Milky white liquid in a bowl.
And cereal floating in it.
Okay.
Anyways, we're talking about
cereal.
This CBC Canada, I think, article about Javier Milei, the chainsaw-wielding libertarian that could become Argentina's next president. And the election is Sunday. They said something about there may be a runoff afterwards, but that's why I wanted to bring this in.
If he wins, there will be a runoff.
Right. Guaranteed.
What exactly does that mean?
They didn't have enough of a majority vote to declare him to win.
So everyone gets to be in the next one, or just the last two?
It's the
Just
last
two, yeah.
Or that's
It's like,
the two
come
biggest.
on, guys, make the right choice that we want you to make.
We can't have another Hitler coming up.
We destroyed the economy as soon as you started going for this guy. We really put the screws to it. Make the right choice so that we can put things back in our power.
Or just it's going to be so close if it's just two people. It's so much easier probably for them to just pick a winner and, fake it.
I really, this is a long shot theory and I don't care how wrong it is. But I really think that fundamentally, mentally, that's why the two-party system is a thing, is because then that there's a majority winner. It has to have more than 50%. Right, Hitler came along and won at 33% or whatever, but that was enough, right? And you can't have that again. So two parties, you're guaranteed a majority winner, and I think that's subconsciously what people are thinking. So if Javier Milei, but he only gets 40% of the vote, right? Well, that's the majority. You win, but that's not the full majority, right? That's not a majority victory. It's just the winning total.
It's just funny because with him during Trump running, okay, I'm not an Argentinian, so I'm not there, but, or an Argentine, is that what you say?
I don't know.
So I'm not there, but the thing that I find funny about it is even in these hit piece articles, I don't see a lot of normal people complaining about him, just the newspaper themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So I just don't know, is he really hated like Trump? Have they polarized the country to where half the country hate him?
Oh yeah, I mean, so the biggest problem that the elite had with Trump is that he does not start enough wars for them to pay all their buddies. I mean, he starts a few, but not nearly enough.
Oh no, I meant Milei.
Oh yeah, well, so it's the same issue. He is also getting in the way of them bribing all of their powerful friends. So every time he comes up, it's okay, well, they like him. We better make things worse on people. There's this lyric from a song that I didn't really understand when I'd heard it, but I can see it playing now. I mean, I don't agree with how they used the word democracy, and even if democracy broke out, they would just make the economy scream until we vote responsibly.
Speaking of ignorant masses, we have Sarah in New Mexico on. Sarah, what's on your mind?
Yeah, I mentioned that, about the ignorant masses. You're right. I was beating myself up pretty much getting the vote out. I mean, all last week, running around and talking to people about our city election. And this whole homeless family is like the ignorant masses. Did you know we're voting for the bond issue of the homeless shelter, low-income housing, community centers? We have senior centers, libraries, parks, and recreation. Do you vote? They both ran off. We don't vote. We don't vote. They're running around homeless with 2 kids.
Wow, it's almost like they have more important things to worry about.
Yeah, I don't see how voting is going to help their situation. Vote harder, homeless dude.
Wait a minute. Voting. Yeah, voting You're voting. It's the ballot is asking money for homeless shelter, money for parks. They were at a park. They hang out at the libraries. They have community centers, senior centers. They're asking to build more money for buses, transportation. I'm sure they don't have a car. So they're asking...
You want them to get a car, Sarah?
No, they could be homeless with a car, but obviously...
Yeah, but do you want them to be another driver?
Here's the thing. How come doesn't it interest them? It pertains to their life. They're not registered. They don't care to vote. Only the women vote, and women was kind of listening to me. As I think about it, for some reason, women like to vote. So that she was like, I don't think she's registered, but she was kind of a little bit interested. The guy could care less. So talking about the ignorant masses, that is the ignorant masses.
They don't seem very ignorant to me at all, in the sense that they realize that their vote doesn't really change things in their world.
Right.
And the statistical analysis has borne this out, that regardless of whether a policy is popular or unpopular among the average people, there's a 30% chance of it passing. What matters is if a policy is popular among lobbies, and especially among rich financial lobbies.
Is that what you actually called in for, though, Sarah?
Well, you know what? I called in because I've been getting the vote out, and talk about people being disoriented. I mean, they're like, what election? Election for what? They're like, well, city councilor 2, 4, and 6, and 8, even number. Most of them people, they never knew the difference between a school board and a city councilor. They got all confused.
What do you think they're thinking about all day? Like, their own lives and trying to get by and how to make money.
Afford groceries.
Well, you know what? I think it's people that have a job, that go to school, that work. I mean, there's, like you said, their minds are so preoccupied. They don't even watch the news. Most people don't even watch the news. They don't and then therefore they miss it. They don't want to hear the news, bad things. And so they miss all of this. I mean, about...
Sarah, did you know that the news lies to you?
Oh, I know that.
Well, then why is it a good thing that they should watch the news?
Well, the thing is, but then you miss all of the opportunities for you to have a say-so. You miss everything. And then if you don't get the news on your media, I mean, you can get the news when you want to on the computer, you miss everything. I know they lie because, at 6:05 in the morning, they'll tell you we're voting for the city councilors, the 4 councilors. Okay, and that same guy, Bob Clark, at 9:30 will say, oh, we're voting for the school board. Nobody comes out and votes for that. Because at 6 o'clock, everybody's asleep. He'll tell you what we're voting for. But when everybody's up at 9:30, oh, we're voting for school board. Oh, why bother to vote? Oh, yeah, they lie all the time.
So the propaganda machine works.
Okay, thank you for the call, Sarah. I don't know. I can't really follow. I kind of zoned out there a little bit. I just can't follow a person complaining about school board voting. I understand these people not caring, Sarah. That's all I really have to say about it.
Yeah, there doesn't seem to be any consistency or congruence with their ideas. I know they lie to me, but people should still watch it.
Yeah.
Well, that doesn't make any sense.
They tell the truth when no one's paying attention, is also what she was suggesting. Right? The early morning news before people wake up, they tell you what's really going on. And then when people are awake to watch the news, then they lay on the propaganda. Right? So if you really want to pay attention, you have to be up at 6:05 in the morning to get the real news of what's going on and miss out on the propaganda later.
I would like to test this theory.
I mean, talk to Bob Clark in Albuquerque, but that's not a new strategy either, right? Like bad financial news hits like end of day on Friday, right? And then you got to sit on it over the weekend. The markets reopen Monday, and everyone's forgotten about it, right? Like bad news always hits Friday night when it's too late to be in the regular press.
That's true.
Well, getting back to the chainsaw-wielding libertarian Javier Milei, he did win the open primary where every party runs at once, and he got the most votes there. It still wasn't a majority. It was like 30% or something like that, but that's with like tons of candidates running all at once. But this Sunday is going to be the real election, or like the final election, unless a runoff occurs this Sunday. And it says the vote marks a major crossroads for Argentina, one of the world's top grains exporters. And I already read this. So like they have a lot of resources going for them. And that's an important thing to note.
If only the government would get out of the way and let those exporters handle their business.
Right.
Absolutely right. I mean,
There shouldn't be any excuse for them to be like doing so badly.
Yeah, there's plenty of countries with fewer resources than Argentina has that are doing better because they don't terribly mismanage quite that awfully.
It says the country is also the largest, by far, debtor to the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, with an outstanding $44 billion U.S. loan program, as well as huge international debts with bondholders and a large currency swap line with China.
Wake me up when that hits the trillions.
Well, and you can bet that if he does manage to actually win this, even after the runoff election that they call, that the World Bank will say, oh, you are too big of a risk. We can no longer loan you money under any circumstances.
Is that why they can't switch to the dollar?
I mean, it'll definitely make it harder, and it'll make things more difficult for him. But it's the same nonsense that they pulled when El Salvador decided to back Bitcoin. Like all of a sudden, the Bank of International Settlement and the World Bank, which are, twin agencies, are putting out all of these things about what huge risks they are and saying, you should really stop this and go back on this policy, and saying, well, we won't lend you anything and none of you should either. And you can bet
would that be a bad thing? I mean,
he laughed about it, the president of El Salvador, and he said like something kind of edgy when it happened on Twitter. And they
the
seem
World
to be
Bank
doing
going
fine.
like, we're not going to loan you any money to a country already $44 billion in debt, right? I mean, does that mean they're going to have to work their way out of it?
Well, I mean, that's the thing. If they keep the status quo, they'll have no problem loaning the money.
Okay.
If you keep this, 200% annual inflation, no problem loaning you money. Removing the inflation because you're not using your own money anymore, oh, now you're risky. Now you're doing something weird.
Well, I still fail to understand the downside to that.
It just makes the transition more difficult.
Okay. Like, do you want to be beholden to the World Bank and being in debt to them? Or do you want to figure out how to
what you want is
maximize your revenue?
What you want is companies that have a high credit rating so that they can get lower payments on their insurance.
And plus, if things initially go bad whenever they're doing these little things that they can do the IMF, the people are going to blame Milei, if he was just elected.
Yeah. And one thing I remember Nayib Bukele tweeting out is how hey, they said we were going to default on all of these loans, and when we didn't, no one said anything.
Yeah, I remember that too.
Yeah.
It says Milei has criticized China, pledged to, quote, burn down the central bank, privatize public sector. He talks like Ricky, I meant to say. Talking about whatever he said, chop down the U.S.
Blow them all away.
Yeah, blow them all away. Wow. So he pledged to burn down the central bank, privatize public sector entities, and switch to the U.S. dollar. He is an anti-abortion and anti-feminist. They probably, putting that in a weird sounding way. Like, I don't know. Everybody hears the word anti.
He's against women.
It sounds like, he's anti, regular equality between the races, even though we know that the word feminist doesn't just mean that anymore. And they're just trying to make him sound as bad as possible.
Mm-hmm.
He's the candidate to beat, but the election remains a three-way race, with polls having proven unreliable for the August primary, failing to spot Milei's sharp ascent.
Yeah, I'm sure they didn't spot it. It wasn't that they just lied about it over and over again. Couldn't be that.
Now, that's something they did with Ron Paul.
Right.
First, second, fourth, fifth, sixth. We don't know who's in third, but it's definitely not Ron Paul.
Right.
Wow, yeah.
Right.
Crazy
Yeah,
stuff like that.
Yeah, and the same thing happened with Trump and Clinton. I mean, that's a big part of why it came out of nowhere for a lot of people is that a lot of the opinion polls were just straight lying about what was happening
in order to move public opinion in that direction.
Right.
the truth is that all scenarios are possible, said Marielle Fornoni, director at Consultancy Management and Fit, whatever that means. Pollsters generally agree the most likely result is that Milei comes first, but faces a second-round head-to-head with Massa on November 19th. A candidate needs 45% of the vote or 40% with a 10-point lead over second place to win outright on Sunday. So to not have a runoff, he needs that.
Yeah, that's very convenient for the status quo.
Yep, that's what I'm saying.
Okay, well, we're going to run you against two candidates. You won? Okay, well, now we're going to run you against one candidate.
And all you people that voted for those two better vote for the other one.
Right.
Not Milei.
That's a good point.
Exactly.
Yep.
It says, political analyst Carlos Ferra said Milei's rise appeared to mark the end of the domination of the country's two main political factions, the left-leaning Peronists, I'm not sure if I'm saying that right or what it means, currently in power, and the main conservative opposition bloc, which doesn't have a name, I guess. We may be at the end of one historical cycle and at the beginning of the next, he said.
Sweet.
Let's hope.
Argentines, so that answers my question from earlier. For some reason, I thought Argentinian was a word.
It might be.
So Argentines will start voting at 8 a.m. local time on Sunday, with first results expected at 9 p.m. local time. I wonder if Argentinex is a thing down there.
Who's on tomorrow night? Because they might be able to get those results live during the broadcast.
Right?
Captain will be back.
Okay.
Captain, Nikki, and Steve, I think.
All right.
I forgot
All
it's
right.
not you. Not used to you not being on Sundays anymore.
Sorry.
We are tired now. We wake up angry. We can't feed our children the daily bread and milk they ask for, said 57-year-old homemaker Mariel Segovia in Tapiales near Buenos Aires. It's just fun to say like that. I could say Aries and be white, but it's just fun to say like that.
Ares.
We don't know where the money is going to come from. Bullrich backers, including business leaders, cite her moderate views and stability, while others say you just want somebody who's going to be the status quo during 200% inflation and the country going to crap.
Yeah, we're just doing fine. Just great. I mean, we can't feed our children, but we should keep that way.
While others say the country should go with Massa and the Peronists to safeguard the subsidies that have kept utilities and transport costs low.
Subsidies from who?
Yeah, and apparently it's not really doing much, is it?
I am retired and I have grandchildren and children at the public university. Massa is the only one who defends the values of the Argentine people, says retiree Adriana Shadfin, 63. I guess this is the first article I've ever read where there are people like saying bad stuff about him. Well, I guess they're saying good stuff about the other ones, but Mabel Baez, 69, said she would vote for Bullrich as a strong female candidate who has pushed a law and order platform that harks back to her time as security minister. She's going to defend us, Baez said.
The Iron Fist.
And it literally has a picture of candidate Bullrich with her fist up in the air.
I rest
law
my
and
case.
order.
You can have your bread when you are in jail.
Yeah. The election will likely split the vote between the top three runners with a further two candidates polling at under 5%. That will impact the makeup of Congress, which is being partially renewed and will likely end up fragmented. No coalition is expected to have a majority in either chamber, forcing the next president to negotiate across political divides.
Or just burn it down.
Yeah, burn it all down with
the
his
flamethrower of justice.
flame-throwing chainsaw.
Chainsaw wielding. You can't burn it down with the chainsaw, though, so he's going to need to get himself a flamethrower.
Well, I mean, if you can get that friction going high enough.
He can buy my new combo that's coming out, or hybrid.
Exactly.
There you go.
Frontrunner Milei would have a relatively small number of seats in Congress and little regional government support. Many voters, however, appeared resigned to a Milei win, a reflection of how, it's like if there are people who support him, they're resigned to a Milei win.
I guess it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
They should be more excited.
Right?
It's going to be exciting.
I guess we'll be radically changing things for the better.
There's going to be a watch party here in New Hampshire at the Shell, apparently.
Really?
Yeah.
For the Milei thing? All right.
That's just way too far for me to go to that, to be honest. But
If
it's
one of
probably
them
gonna be
is
fun.
listening right now, when you get the results, call into tomorrow night's show.
Oh, that would
Share
be great. If anybody is going to the watch party at the Shell tomorrow, definitely call into the show as soon as you find out and let Free Talk Live know at 603-283-6160, which is the number anyone can call in right now to get your thoughts on Unless You're Squidward.
And they might also be preemptively, setting him up for failure, right? It's not going to have regional support, not going to have congressional support. So his hands are going to be tied regardless of all the cost-cutting waste management he wants to.
With all the people who say things like, I'm going to vote for someone who can win, they get influenced by people saying stuff like that. Like, oh, he's not going to be able to do good. Or he's not going to be able to win.
Vote for him anyway.
Yeah, just vote for him anyway. I think that's such a dumb excuse to not vote for someone. Even if I was like a federal government voter, I've never thought that made any sense. Like, I can't
it's a
vote for this
self-fulfilling
one.
prophecy.
Right. It's like you just want to be on the side. You want to be like, yay, I picked the right one and they won. And that's all it is to you.
Look what you get when you do that, though.
After they said that many voters are just resigned to a Milei win, it says, a reflection of how the former television pundit has managed to take hold of the political narrative, leveraging memes and videos online that have resonated with younger voters.
Yep.
Those are some dank memes, by the way.
I have not seen them.
I have. They're awesome.
That's
Mostly
funny.
it's like quotes, like just straight up, just quote him. He memes himself. Put him on there with those sideburns and what he actually said about things.
Anytime I see a Spanish meme, I go straight to Google Translate because I know it's about to be funny. They're just great at making memes.
All right.
I'm going to vote for Massa, but Milei is going to win, said Stella Buke, 65, who has a book stall at the Parque Centenario Fair. At this point, I don't see any other way. Here now, all the poor people are right-wing. It's all the stupid poor people.
The
That's what
right-wing stupid poor people.
Yeah, I guess she's just
Is there
blaming
right-wing and
them.
left-wing the same?
Yeah, I have no
right-wing and
clue.
left-wing? Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
kind of got established throughout the world from like the French shifting.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Just double checking.
That was
I don't
that
pay that close.
whole article. I just think it's really funny because basically they're, they're scaremongering so hard or fearmongering so hard about Milei. It's so obvious that they're terrified that he might win.
I'm resigned to have more freedom and liberty and better finances in my life.
I guess I'll be able to afford milk again.
Yeah.
If I have to.
And we read an article just the other day, maybe like 1 week ago actually, that Ian had read in jail, and he suggested that I read. That was so funny because they're actually starting to blame him for those things.
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely.
I don't know how that's possible.
No,
Like, he brought it
It's
up, yeah.
astonishing.
Propaganda.
It's astonishing. Like when he does well is when they start like cranking up the money printers. That does the obvious thing of making everything more expensive because there's more Argentinian dollars now. And then they go, oh, look at what
It's
he's doing.
because of the popularity.
We can't it's the popularity, and we can't give him the power when things are this bad.
Coming up, there's a new way to call out of work just by saying you're not in the mood. To hear more about that, stick with us. Free Talk Live. More coming up.
This hour of Free Talk Live is brought to you by Dash Digital Cash. Dash is the cryptocurrency designed to be used for spending. In addition to being one of the world's first cryptocurrencies, Dash was the first crypto project to have a decentralized autonomous organization that to this day continues to improve and promote Dash. Every month, 10% of the mining rewards go into a treasury. Anyone with one Dash to spend can put forward a proposal to the Dash masternodes. The masternodes vet the proposals and decide which ones move forward and are funded by that treasury. Nowadays, DAOs are plentiful, but Dash paved the way by doing it first nearly a decade ago. Dash is one of the oldest cryptocurrencies and is widely available on exchanges, including the decentralized Maya protocol, and in multi-crypto wallets. It's easy to get and use Dash. Start by learning more at dash.org. Thanks to the Dash DAO for sending us 32 Dash per month to promote Dash on the air. Visit dash.org to learn about Dash. Dash.org.
My name is Jacob Hornberger. I'm president of the Future of Freedom Foundation, which Congressman Ron Paul awarded for having an outstanding freedom website. Write us at fff@fff.org, and we'll send you a free 3-month subscription to our monthly journal of libertarian essays and our booklet, Economic Liberty in the Constitution, which George Mason University economics professor Walter Williams praised in a recent column. That's fff@fff.org.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper with the Week in Review. This week, US President Joe Biden was among several world leaders to visit Israel. He met Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, but not several Arab leaders as planned, including Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas. His visit to Jordan to meet them was cancelled after an explosion at a hospital in Gaza killed roughly 500 people. Israel and Hamas each blamed the other for responsibility for the horrendous civilian death toll. FSN's Sarah Coates in Tel Aviv was following developments throughout the week and weighed up the impact of President Biden's visit.
A real whirlwind crisis trip for the US president, coming at a time that the US is once again reaffirming its support for Israel, and while this region is really teetering on the brink. He also levelled a warning at other regional players. We're talking namely here about Iran and Hezbollah, saying, if you're thinking about attacking Israel, the message remains the same as it has this past week. Don't.
Biden said he brokered a deal to get aid into Gaza, but it remained stuck for several days waiting to cross from Egypt into Gaza. The UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres visited the Rafah border crossing in Egypt to try and kick-start the delivery of aid to the more than 2 million Palestinians in desperate need of assistance. But as Ross Cullen in Tel Aviv reported on Friday, there were still a number of challenges facing the aid delivery.
There's some real issues in the infrastructure side of this. The roads in and around the Rafah border crossing on the Israeli, after the Israeli airstrikes in that area on the Gaza side have been cratered, potholed and damaged, and they have had to be repaired by Egyptian machinery being brought over from Egypt ahead of those trucks as the works begin. As a result of that, the Israeli airstrikes on the 10th and the 16th of October to try to repair the damage.
On Thursday, President Biden made an Oval Office address in which he urged Americans to get behind sending more than $100 billion of support to Israel and Ukraine, and he warned about the threats facing America and the world.
Hamas and Putin represent different threats, but they share this in common. They both want to completely annihilate a neighboring democracy, completely annihilate it. Hamas' stated purpose for existing is the destruction of the State of Israel and the murder of Jewish people.
This week, the US House of Representatives remained in limbo. Far-right Republican Jim Jordan lost several rounds of voting, with staunch opposition from within his own party. FSN's Benji Heyer sent this report from Washington.
It was not the day of triumph that Jim Jordan had hoped for. Congress's lower chamber remains dysfunctional, rudderless, with huge implications at home and abroad. Without someone wielding the gavel, legislation, including on aid for Israel, simply can't get passed by lawmakers. Speaker-designate Jordan could keep fighting, though the maths isn't in his favour. Republicans may have to look for another, more moderate candidate to coalesce around to fill what Congressman Ken Buck describes as the worst job in America.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks. We heard yesterday one version of what might happen in Gaza, the concept of a UN trusteeship overseeing the governance of the territory instead of Hamas. But now another idea has been put forward after Israeli government leaders said a ground assault on Gaza could begin at any time. So why has it taken nearly 2 weeks for the much-anticipated ground offensive to begin? And what is its aim in Gaza beyond neutralizing Hamas as a political and military force? In Tel Aviv, we hear again today from reporter Noga Tarnopolsky.
The Israeli leaders who were caught by surprise by this really cataclysmic terror attack, they were unprepared. I have not heard any mention of what the plan is post-invasion. Yeah. And Israeli opposition leader Yair Lapid, who's a former prime minister, he said that the Israeli people need to hear more than just, we're going to invade. They need to hear what comes next. And he proposed the future leaders of the Gaza Strip, once Hamas vanishes, should be the Palestinian Authority, that is the internationally recognized Palestinian government in the West Bank.
But all that presupposes Hamas will indeed vanish, and that the people of Gaza are willing to be governed by someone else. The stakes are high, and the outcome still very uncertain. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
And that was the Week in Review. That's Feature Story News. Nick Harper reporting.
Jack Daniels announced today its plan to start marketing directly to children, adding, quote, "Why not?" Executives for the whiskey company told reporters that they've already slated dozens of television spots showing 10-year-old children drinking tumblers of Jack and Coke in playgrounds, and that the company was planning on, quote, "just seeing how it all played out."
Every year, Jack Daniels sells millions of dollars of great American whiskey to men and women all over the world. So, for our next ad campaign, we basically just thought, hey, why not just start marketing this stuff straight to 10-year-olds? I mean, if they catch us, but we'll see how far it goes, and hopefully we can sell some alcohol along the way. Sure, some parents groups could get upset, especially if we go with our idea of moms serving their kids cranberry Jack at snack time. But
in other news, a doomed rabbit will teach an 8-year-old a lesson about responsibility, and a torrent of soap issues from a wildly unexpected part of the dispenser. Well, that was it. It's all downhill from here, bud. For more, visit theonion.com.
This is the Onion News Network.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com. Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live. Talk radio that you control. 603-283-6160. That's the number you can call in to get on the air with us. 603-283-6160. It's the final hour tonight of Free Talk Live. And we do have a call on the line, so I'm going to go straight into it. But first, in the studio with you tonight, it's me, Bonnie.
Peakless Mountaineer.
And Richie Rich.
And secondly, I also have to read a Dash ad. This hour of Free Talk Live is brought to you by Dash, Digital Cash. Dash is the cryptocurrency designed to be used for spending. Tired of the ever-inflating US dollar? You can live your life on Dash instead with some handy websites. BitRefill.com has been accepting Dash for years and has a ton of big-name retailers and brands, including grocers, gas stations, phone refills, Amazon, and even prepaid MasterCards. Plus, many of their gift cards are available at a discount. What about paying your bills? Spritz.finance can do that, and they can send dollars to your bank account in case you need those for some reason still. Dash is one of the oldest cryptocurrencies and is widely available on exchanges, including the decentralized Maya protocol and in multi-crypto wallets. It's easy to get and use Dash. Start by learning more at dash.org. Thanks to the Dash DAO for sending us 32 Dash per month to promote Dash on the air. Visit dash.org to learn more about Dash. Dash.org. And moving right into the calls, we have Mr. Hathaway in Arizona. Mr. Hathaway, David, what is on your mind?
Yeah, hi, Bonnie, Peakless, and Richie. I'm sitting here with my wife, Karen.
Hi, Karen.
I had a couple of things to talk about.
First off, thank you for the lollipops.
Oh, yeah, he ate them.
Are you the one that ate it?
I'm
Bonnie
the only
said
one that ate it.
Yeah, he ate both of them.
Did you eat the scorpion also?
Of course I did.
Apparently, it is a lot like popcorn that gets stuck between your teeth.
That's how I would describe it.
Yeah, well, Bonnie pointed out one of them had the little stinger thing on the tail, and the other one didn't. So I don't know if it had an extra pop on the one if you ate the poison or no.
He did
I didn't think either of them had the stinger.
No,
on
maybe not the actual stinger, but they had one of them had an extra piece to the tail that was a different color, and one of them didn't have that. So I was
All
like,
right.
"What the heck is that? Like a poison sac?"
Yeah, I have no idea. I survived.
He didn't
though.
look. He just ate the scorpion.
I hope so.
Slowly, because it didn't come out of the lollipop right away. Right,
I'm hoping you survived, so we don't have some kind of sixth sense
I'm still here.
setup here. Well,
I made
theory.
it through the doorway. Okay, fair enough.
Well, what's on your mind, David?
Yeah, a couple of things. First, I want to start out talking about I've written to Ian a couple of times, and then there was a comment, I think it was on last night's show or the night before, where somebody said, don't use weird kinds of paper. And the first letter I wrote was on the airplane flying back. They had the little vomit bag that's in the pocket in front of you, and I wrote a letter on that, and I continued it on the napkin. It was like an American Airlines napkin. So I did write a letter to him on weird paper, and I'm wondering if that would be rejected.
So he received that. I've spoken to him, and he said they just, I guess, decided to be nice because when they were in this exact jail before, I wrote nobody a really pretty little note that I wrote him, and it was on just a small piece of notebook paper, and they rejected it. But for your letter this time, they photocopied it and gave it to Ian, which was just like unexpected. Like, I don't know, I've never heard of them. Yeah, just actually decide to be nice. So he received that.
Okay.
Maybe it's because you're sheriff.
Yeah, I thought about that.
Another thing I was wondering is on the books. I sent him a couple of new books and then a couple of used books because they were cheaper. And then I read on some website that you can't send used books to a jail. They can only have new books. Do you know about that?
Yeah, they have to be from Amazon. They have to be from Amazon as the seller. And I'm pretty sure that they do have to be new because the idea is, you could have known the seller, told the seller to put drugs in the book, and then sent it to a prisoner. But
that was my idea.
Okay.
I don't think that you'll get them back either. Like, I think you just kind of lose the money for it, so that sucks. But he did
I was
receive.
going to ask you that. Like, yeah, if I would get notification or send it back. But were you saying he got some of them?
They didn't tell him who these books were from, but he was wondering if this book about a DEA agent who uncovered some terrible murder and then got basically. It's a true story. So this DEA agent found out that another DEA agent tortured and killed a DEA agent and made it seem like the cartel did it. And then when he uncovered that and tried to bring it to light, the DEA was all turning their backs on him, and they didn't give him a ceremony. All this stuff.
I sent that one, and it turned out to actually be a CIA agent that led the interrogation and the torture of Kiki Camarena, and another DEA agent that was running that investigation. And I was also part of that investigation. We uncovered that there were CIA involvement in that because they had pilots that were using this Rafael Caro Quintero, his airstrip to smuggle, guns to the Contras in Nicaragua and to smuggle cocaine back into the U.S. And then the CIA agent, and there's actually a cassette tape of the recording of him leading the interrogation and the torture death. But yeah, I did.
Oh my gosh.
I did send that one. Another one that I sent that he probably won't get. There was like a hardback history of Keene, New Hampshire, just a generic history book.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
The new version was expensive though. It was like $50. So then I found the used one on some Amazon reseller, and I'm thinking, he's probably not going to wind up getting that one. But
he has not received that, or at least he hasn't told me he has. And usually he always updates me about what books he has, and I think he'd be excited about that. So he probably didn't get it. So sorry about that. I really hope that they do something like return to sender and then you get your money back. But I haven't tried it, and Rich is shaking his head like
probably not. Why would they?
Yeah, they don't care about anyone. So
Yeah, it would just probably go back to whatever the Amazon reseller was, and then they'd get the money. Maybe I'll get it credited back. I can probably figure it out if I get the money credited back, if it gets returned to the seller. But anyway, the other thing I was wanting to talk about is I always get invited to make speeches here. I got invited to do the Veterans Day speech and then be the keynote speaker to the Democrat Club. And it's kind of hard to do those things on the Veterans Day speech. Like, the same people show up to all those. There are kind of a lot of warmongers, cheering for foreign wars and all that. So at first I said no, and then I agreed to do it. And then I just kind of searched on the internet to try to find how do you do a peace speech on Veterans Day. And then I actually found something from JFK, from John F. Kennedy from 1961, where it was a pretty good anti-war speech, and I plagiarized parts of that, so I'm writing that up. And I also was the keynote speaker to the local Democrat Club yesterday. Karen went along with me to that. And actually, it's not too hard to speak to a group of Democrats if you remind them that what their roots are. So I reminded them in the 1960s and 70s, Democrats were anti-war. They were against the Vietnam War.
Nice.
They were, and I told them about the Uniparty, and they were all kind of shaking their heads like they hadn't heard that term. And I was telling them,
well, and even in George W. Bush's reign, they were anti-war. That was the majority of the ones showing up at the anti-war rallies, which were the biggest ones since the 60s.
I'll just interject real quick.
I reminded them that the Clintons, Hillary and Bill Clinton, they're both, still heroes of the Democrats nowadays. I reminded them during their college years, they were protesters against the Vietnam War, and they also were protesting the drug war. You should be able to, smoke a joint if you want, and they were protesters of police brutality and how we have high rates of imprisonment in the U.S., and that Democrats traditionally were against those things, locking people up for victimless crimes. So it's just, I want to make sure I'm not two-faced, I'm not disingenuous, that I don't say different things to different groups, but just kind of finding like what resonates with the group. So those were two speeches I was not looking forward to doing, but there's kind of a way, like it was sort of a history lesson for the younger ones yesterday in this Democrat Club that, like I'm 64, and, so when I went through elementary school, it was Vietnam War, and high school was in the 70s. So, I remember all that, but kind of the younger Democrats don't know, well, it's kind of the Democrat legacy to be for peace and anti-war. And I told them there's this thing that I'm sure you guys have heard called the Uniparty, where at the D.C. level, they're kind of indistinguishable, Democrats and Republicans. The way they campaign is they say, look, you better vote for us because if not, you'll get that other guy, and look how bad he is. Mm-hmm. And they both basically say that, but they don't stand for anything. And I also remind them about corporatism. They're supposedly, they were.
I forgot about that.
Corporatism?
No, that the left used to be against corporations and corporate power. It's been so long.
Yeah, when the whole autism thing was first coming along, those were Democrat groups that pointed out that the pharmaceutical companies are pushing, oxycodone, opiate-based pain relievers, and then there were massive lawsuits against them. And the Democrats were saying, look, these big corporations, Pfizer and Merck and all these people, they have crony relationships with the government, big tobacco and all that stuff, the military-industrial complex. Those used to be Democrat issues. So, I didn't beat them over the head with every issue, but tried to just do a history lesson to remind them, hey, these used to be Democrat issues, the anti-corporate stuff, anti-crony stuff.
See, and I'm, again, pro-opiates because I've tried CBD oils for pain relief, and I've tried THC cream for pain relief. And you know what works? Oxy.
I love opiates, but in the form of kratom.
Yeah,
Kratom did not work either.
I believe everyone has the right to choose what their medicines are going to be.
Yeah, well,
and just because, those are no medicines, no, that's absurd.
And I did want to say, I feel like I've been fast and loose or whatever it is with kratom on the air. And I do want to point out that it's addictive to people because I think I just have a strong constitution, in the way that, whenever I feel like, oh, it's starting to not affect me as much and I feel like I need to take more, I'm it's consuming my life, I'm able to just be stop, take a break for a while. And I don't think a lot of people are, or would be. So just pointing that out.
Well,
I just feel like people in the community poo-poo the pharmaceuticals in favor of the natural cannabis.
Hey, and if
doesn't work for me.
If that works, try it first. But if it doesn't work, then yeah.
I did. That's the thing. I did. I tried the oils. I tried the cream. Pharmaceuticals work.
Yeah, and you can look online and you can see in the old days Bayer aspirin with heroin, and they had a thing called,
they
laudanum.
invented
I don't know if that's still out there. And it's like alcohol with, mixed with opiates. And, if all drugs were legal, it's not like my mom or, my grandma would become like a heroin addict or something like
Straight
that.
to the meth.
People would, they would,
or the ecstasy, the MDMA.
Administered those things,
marital aid.
as needed back in those days. Yeah. But when the government gets involved, then, that it becomes a problem.
And they start, putting people who are going to have a drug problem anyway in jail and compounding other problems.
Not in the mood, take this pill.
But yeah, I'm all over come at the right from the right and the left from the left. Because the things that people really feel good about that being one of their team issues tend to be the things that we're awesome at anyway.
Right.
Well, maybe. Because there's a whole bunch of Trump supporters mad at Trump for still pushing the vaccine, even though it was his idea to begin with. Right? Because Joe Biden ran with it. All of a sudden, they're like, nope, they're booing Trump on stage when he was like, take the vaccine, Operation Warp Speed.
He's not coming at the right from the right.
But that's where it started.
I'm going to pass the phone to Karen. She actually got inspired. She gave you the little crocheted donkey and the little bear, but she got inspired to make some crocheted porcupines, and she's made a couple since. And I'm going to pass the phone to her.
Hi.
Hi, Karen. I showed your porcupine, the picture you sent, on my Twitter, and tons of people liked it. I said, a visitor made this after just a short visit to the Free State and had a picture of the porcupine, and everybody on Twitter loved it.
Oh, well, thank you so much. I enjoyed trying to make that.
Anything else on your mind?
You should integrate real needles to give it some quills.
Well, thanks you guys so much for the support and for the call. I really appreciate you guys, and anyone who would write to Ian. That just means the world to me, and I know it does to Ian too, because he doesn't have a lot to do in there and it's really boring. So thank you guys for calling and for that clarification. For anybody else interested in sending him a book or a letter. And
the only other thing I was going to suggest to David is, if he's looking for script fodder, right, throw that prompt into ChatGPT.
Oh yeah,
and see what draft that starts you with.
That works out so well sometimes. We have another call. I'm not sure if this is going to work. It says GTL inmate call. So, caller, you're on the air with us, I think. What's on your mind? Hello? Yeah, it doesn't seem like it was going to work. Well, David was still on. I just clicked the screen button. So I think it probably did something like where I had to press 1 and I wasn't able to do that. I would only be able to do that if they called during the break. So if they're still listening, they should call during the break, right after 6:29. 9:29.
We do have a caller that occasionally will call in from prison.
Yeah, we've had other ones. I don't think I've ever taken them, so I don't know how to answer them outside the break. But I might have to do it on the break. Anyways, we have this story from the Wall Street Journal, and Richie Rich brought this in. It's kind of funny to me. It says that there are people who are reinventing the sick day.
It's millennials and Gen Z.
Yeah, I was going to say,
that's who's
probably
doing
more Gen Z.
Can I have it in a vape, please?
There you go.
I need a sick day in vape form.
If they can't vape during work, then they're not even going to apply.
No. I want a caffeine vape.
Oh, that would be awesome.
It's a thing.
Right?
Oh, it is?
Oh, yeah, it's a thing.
Yeah.
I'd never heard of that.
Look it up.
It's no nicotine?
No nicotine.
I don't really want to do it because all the other ingredients is more what I'm worried about. It's like all the
whatever
syrups,
they got like
poisons.
A B12 vape too.
That's crazy.
That's wild. Getting all of your vitamins in vape form.
It's what the millennials and the Gen Zers want, man.
It's the only way to upgrade from the Flintstones gummies, really. Straight to vape.
From Tae-Ping Chen for the Wall Street Journal. They say the bar for taking a sick day is getting lower, and some bosses say that's a problem.
Yeah.
U.S. workers have long viewed an unwillingness to take sick days as a badge of honor.
You know why? Because you get the little certificate in grade school for having perfect attendance.
Yeah, that's what I was immediately thinking of. I never had those.
I've seen recognition in different workplaces for people who had perfect attendance for the year.
Yeah, see?
Sometimes even a bonus.
Wow.
She's been here for 40 years and never missed a day in her life.
Right.
Wow. That's just
Poor lady.
sad. Yeah.
Right.
That's a Laurel workers care. Wait, what? That's a Laurel workers care much less about these days. Okay,
Laurel being a particular
prize.
honor, like you would, you'd get a laurel for winning the Olympics
Like in
back
your hair.
in the day. Yeah.
It says the number of sick days Americans take annually has soared since the pandemic. Employee payroll data show. COVID-19 and a rise in illnesses such as RSV, which can require days away from work, are one reason. Sure. I'm pretty sure it's mostly
I just need a mental health day.
that kind of stuff.
I need
Managers
to take care of me today.
and plus, like during quote unquote the pandemic, there were like a huge slackening of the reins in work anyway. Like people got used to doing stuff like working from home and stuff like that. Quitting their jobs because their jobs suddenly sucked. That's what I did. But I didn't even go on welfare like everyone else. I just went and did Uber Eats. And that was like such a slackening of the reins. I never went back to a normal job ever again in my life. Well, except the Moose Mart, but they're pretty they're not, slave drivers over there.
You don't have to take a sick day. You just don't show up and it's okay.
No.
Bonnie's not here today.
I was a great worker at Moose Mart. They love me.
Or the meetup restaurant that just randomly closes some nights, and then we can't have the meetup there.
Yep.
Well, I think
we don't have anyone willing to work.
Well, I mean,
Oh, yeah, that's
most
probably
jobs, have been slave drivers and have been moving in that sort of generally less human kind of environment, and that was somewhat acceptable back when we could potentially ever buy a house.
Yeah.
But at this point, people are like, "What? You're going to treat me like absolute garbage?" And it's never going to help me. I'm going to be in debt for the rest of my life and never afford anything. Why would I not take an extra sick day?
Right. Or at least just like do a job that's super easy. Like whenever I was doing Uber Eats, I was making just as much money I was making more money during the pandemic than I would be if I stayed at my waitress job where nobody was allowed to come inside and we were just giving people to-go orders. Like that was an obvious, idea. And then even then I would quit all my other jobs in between then. That wasn't like when I first started doing Uber Eats. I would like go be like, okay, this is getting like a lot for me. I need to go get a real job. I'd work at Walmart for a few months and I'd be like, you scheduled me on Halloween? I'm quitting. I can always just do Uber Eats. And I didn't have to go be in a building for 8 hours a day, which 8 hours is just ridiculous to me. Seriously. Like I just don't want to be in some stupid building for 8 hours a day. You should at least offer there to be like, like I would work every single day if it was like 5-hour days.
Okay.
You more likely than I would want to have even just a part-time job, 8-hour days. It ruins your whole life.
I hear what you're saying, but the other day was like a nice day here in New Hampshire.
Mm-hmm.
And my boss was like, hey, I'll give you a 10-minute break if you just want to go outside and enjoy the weather. I was like, no, I don't care about being outside. Like,
to me, it's not really like being indoors or outdoors. It's being stuck and not being able to go do things I want to actually do.
All right. Well, I mean, that's fair, and that's the leisure time, right? Like, I mean, it's
and schedule flexibility, like you were saying, you did Uber Eats. I mean, that's ultimate schedule flexibility. Of like, if I need 5 minutes, I can just take 5 minutes between my deliveries.
Right.
No, I get you, but it's a Doug Stanhope bit, but it's like, work 5 to get 2. Who wants to do that? Well, everyone did, right? You work 5. And then, like, your leisure time is the other 2 days.
Yeah, and then they suck because you're like, I'm going to have to go to work in 2 days. The whole time.
Well, that's your fault for having the mentality that your days off are going to suck because work is on the horizon.
Well, no, I would argue that is actually the fault of money printing.
Okay.
Yeah, it really is.
all of this work that we've done to advance technology so that we would have these labor-saving devices, so that we'd have absolute pinnacle efficiency in getting our resources where they need to go, and we still only have 2 days off. That is because the system is rigged to keep it that way. It's not because we actually need to work that much.
That's fine, but if you're upset, if you're spending your 2 days off lamenting that you have to be at work in a couple of days, right? Then that's misuse of mental work, mental brain
That's just
power.
how bad the jobs I've had mostly have sucked, and I've never like had any kind of passion
you spend your time at work going, all right, weekend's coming. I'm excited at work because 2 days from now I get a day off.
Not really. I spent my time at, for example, hotel jobs thinking like, F you idiot, to these idiots who were trying to talk to me like I'm some kind of a slave. Not just my bosses, but mostly the people who work there. Like if you work in hotels, the people who stay at, like, it can be an Econo Lodge, and the people who stay there are suddenly like royalty because,
I'm good at compartmentalizing that, man, because once I'm off the clock mentally. All of a sudden it's like, all right, what am I eating? Where am I going? What am I playing tonight? What movies am I watching? Like that's... Monday morning, roll out of bed like, oh man, now I gotta
you'd be
do
one
this
of those people that would do the sci-fi treatment to have like work you and weekend you be literally different people.
Sure.
What do you think? Am I lazy? 603-283-6160. Free Talk Live.
On Free Talk Live, we're bringing people to the ideas of liberty every day. From wrestling superstars like Glenn Jacobs.
You guys really are having an impact, I believe. Like I said, a lot of where I am now is due to listening to Free Talk Live. You changed my mind on some very important issues years ago.
To random people tuning in on the radio.
I was kind of stuck in the left-right paradigm. I heard your show by chance on a Saturday night. From there, I went on, joined the Free State Project, and become an amplifier. So, that's really the reason why I amp is because I know that if it wasn't for you guys being on as many stations as you are, I never would have found the ideas of liberty.
You can help more people hear the message of liberty by joining Free Talk Live's AMPS program on Patreon for as little as $5 a month. And you'll get access to special perks. Visit amps.freetalklive.com, amps.freetalklive.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper with the Week in Review. This week, US President Joe Biden was among several world leaders to visit Israel. He met Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, but not several Arab leaders as planned, including Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas. His visit to Jordan to meet them was cancelled after an explosion at a hospital in Gaza killed roughly 500 people. Israel and Hamas each blamed the other for responsibility for the horrendous civilian death toll. FSN's Sarah Coates in Tel Aviv was following developments throughout the week and weighed up the impact of President Biden's visit.
A real whirlwind crisis trip for the US president, coming at a time that the US is once again reaffirming its support for Israel, and while this region is really teetering on the brink. He also levelled a warning at other regional players. We're talking namely here about Iran and Hezbollah, saying, if you're thinking about attacking Israel, the message remains the same as it has this past week. Don't.
Biden said he brokered a deal to get aid into Gaza, but it remained stuck for several days waiting to cross from Egypt into Gaza. The UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres visited the Rafah border crossing in Egypt to try and kick-start the delivery of aid to the more than 2 million Palestinians in desperate need of assistance. But as Ross Cullen in Tel Aviv reported on Friday, there were still a number of challenges facing the aid delivery.
There's some real issues in the infrastructure side of this. The roads in and around the Rafah border crossing on the Israeli, after the Israeli airstrikes in that area on the Gaza side have been cratered, potholed and damaged, and they have had to be repaired by Egyptian machinery being brought over from Egypt ahead of those trucks. As the works begin as a result of that, the Israeli airstrikes on the 10th and the 16th of October to try to repair the damage.
On Thursday, President Biden made an Oval Office address in which he urged Americans to get behind sending more than $100 billion of support to Israel and Ukraine. And he warned about the threats facing America and the world.
Hamas and Putin represent different threats, but they share this in common. They both want to completely annihilate a neighboring democracy, completely annihilate it. Hamas' stated purpose for existing is the destruction of the state of Israel and the murder of Jewish people. Hamas uses Palestinian civilians as human shields, and innocent Palestinian families are suffering greatly because of them. Meanwhile, Putin denies Ukraine has or ever had real statehood.
This week, the US House of Representatives remained in limbo. Far-right Republican Jim Jordan lost several rounds of voting, with staunch opposition from within his own party. From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
You can help spread the ideas of liberty with our Patreon for just $5 per month at amps.freetalklive.com.
Back with more Free Talk Live, and it's talk radio that you control. 603-283-6160. That number is 603-283-6160, and you can call in with whatever is on your mind. With you in the studio tonight, it's me, Bonnie,
Peakless Mountaineer,
and Richie Rich.
And I want to say thanks to Sean Paul. He's a silver level amplifier. An amplifier is a person who helps amplify, market, and promote and support Free Talk Live. Silver means he gives more. He gives $5 a month, and we really appreciate that. To learn more and learn how you can become a member of the AMPS program, there are some benefits that you'll get for helping amplify, market, promote, and support the show. You can go to amps.freetalklive.com. That's amps.freetalklive.com. And thank you again, Sean Paul. Going back to this Wall Street Journal article, I guess we haven't really started it yet, but it's about the younger generation especially. They're calling in sick more than they used to, and some employers say it's costing them money. Well, I guess we did. We read the first article.
Poor them.
Or first paragraph here. They say that COVID-19 is part of the reason why, because there's been a rise in illnesses. I guess I could kind of believe that
whatever their excuses.
Rise in illnesses.
Okay, to be fair, there almost certainly is a rise in illnesses. Like, we really screwed people up by, taking away their faces.
Yeah.
Telling them they weren't allowed to go outside. Like, yeah, that's going to have some echoes for a little while of screwing up people's health.
I want to see if we can take this call. It's the GTL inmate call.
Dial 1-866-607-6006.
It's not letting me do anything. Usually you can kind of press 1. Are you there, caller?
Should have screened it during the break.
No, he didn't start calling until just now.
Oh, okay. Your fault, caller.
Well, I don't think I can do
So
anything.
close.
It started telling me to press some or call some number. So, if you're calling in inmate, mystery inmate, I'm sorry, I tried, but I can't really take the call unless you do it during the break, possibly.
Well,
but even then, I'm not sure if I can.
There's no more breaks.
No, yeah, you can't. You can't call in again tonight. But
Too late.
Talking about
Too late,
tomorrow
buddy.
or something. Anyways, more people are calling out from work. It says, for one, more workers are using up sick time, often for reasons such as mental health.
See?
And
They're not even sick.
Well, last night, okay.
They're sick in the head.
The reason I wanted
Maybe.
to get into this article, and I thought was so funny, is last night, my sister and I was telling Richie Rich this before the break, and I don't really mind telling the radio. At first, I felt like last night when I was in the thick of being scared, I was thinking, I can't tell anyone this. It's gonna, cause my house to be, listening and my house to start having haunted things happen. But let me just, long story short, my sister and I were falling asleep. She was sleeping on the couch in my room. So my room set up kind of like a foyer, a door, and then an actual bedroom, but my door was open, both doors were open, or the door in between was open, sorry. And I woke up to a voice, and she woke up to the voice, and she immediately said, "Bonnie, were you talking?" And I was like, "No, I was asleep." And she said she swears that she heard my voice say, "I'm back."
Well, and during the last break, Bonnie thought she heard me call her back to the studio from wherever she was.
I know you
and
said
I
something.
I did not address you at all.
No, I swear you said
Okay.
Bonnie, when were you born or something? If it wasn't.
That was peakless when you walked back into the room.
No, it was right before that. Maybe you. I just heard you guys talking. Maybe I just thought it was your
All right.
voice. But nothing
or
else.
maybe it was.
We were definitely talking, but you were not being summoned.
Nothing else haunted has been happening in my house. I really refuse to
Maybe
believe
it was
that.
just some unusual quantum interference there. You got some time traveling sound waves.
Man. Is this some interstellar stuff?
Yeah, maybe.
That'd be kind
From
of
the
cooler
future?
than
Or the past.
Okay.
That would be cooler than a ghost. Like, I don't know.
No, that's one of my explanations for some of the ghost activity is just you're experiencing unusual quantum phenomena.
I mean, that
The
totally
Hans
makes
Hermann
sense.
Hoppe book startly protrudes from the shelf to make sure you grab that next in your libertarian reading.
Oh my gosh. Well, anyways, so because
Just
of that,
a skip, a jump, and a Hans Hermann Hoppe.
They must be physically removed.
well, we were like scared after that happened. So I told my sister, like, just come get in bed with me. Like, I'm too creeped out now to be alone
Where's
in here
Ricky
now.
from the Commonwealth on this one?
Oh my gosh. So she stayed in my bed last night, and we were like awake for like a whole extra hour because of this, because we were just like freaked out. And the reason is because we've been watching Sam and Colby videos, and I totally don't mind like shouting them out. I love Sam and Colby, and you know that makes me Gen Z.
Except that they're scary.
Yeah, they go in.
You know who
they're
these people are?
YouTubers.
I have no earthly idea.
See, that makes me Gen Z.
I
I'd
will
say.
always think of you as Gen Z.
Yay. So
Even
anyways,
though the Census Bureau doesn't.
If it's
no,
not
the
the
Census
sweet
Bureau
life
does.
of
It's
Zach and Cody.
Wikipedia that doesn't.
Oh, it's. I just looked it up. And the
Oh.
Census Bureau calls it all the way until the millennium, which makes a certain kind
What?
of sense.
Well, not
You're
really if
millennial
you think
until
of
the
like.
millennium?
Yeah.
Okay.
Seriously,
Which
people in
seems weird to me.
1999 are not millennials. Like, my little brother was born in 1999. There's even a big difference between him and I was born in 1996. But anyways,
Well, I mean, boomer's definitely a state of mind. So
Yes, it is. It totally
like,
is.
that's a fact. You can say "okay, boomer" to someone who wasn't actually born during the baby boom.
I've done it.
That's
And
true.
It's meaningful as a statement.
Yes.
I also think of my friends that happen to be boomers as not boomers, or I always had, because I said, like, jokingly about someone else, I was like, okay, boomer, about someone we were talking about, and they were all like, we're boomers. And I was like, wait, really? I didn't think of them as boomers.
Let's talk about this for a minute because it vaguely relates to the article that we're reading. Right? There was some other piece of show prep in the host channel where some people were homeless and living in a tent, and oh my gosh, woe on them. Right? And the boomer in the group steps like, by the time I was 12, I had a job and I've worked my entire life. And why don't these people just go out and get a job and work hard for a living? I'm like,
He didn't mention that he wasn't getting paid for the job at 12, except in comic books.
Either way, like on this show, right, we have talked about how raising the minimum wage has priced those people out of the job market altogether.
Right.
Because they can't get them.
Yeah.
Right. And his suggestion to this like homeless teen was just go get a job, you lazy. Like, why are these Lungans so lazy today? Well, I was 12, I just went out and got a job.
And
Because
technically
it's
he's Gen X.
illegal to give them a job where you pay what they're worth.
Right. Which is an argument we make on the air.
Right.
All the time.
And technically he's Gen X, so totally boomer is a state of mind. Basically,
That's
whole
my point. That's why I said boomer's a state of mind.
The whole
'cause it's a
reason I
totally
brought up
boomer move.
the ghost activity in my house is to say my sister called off work simply because she was too scared to go to work and like get
Way
up
to
in the
put her
dark.
on blast
I
on
see.
national air now.
And she doesn't. I
way
doubt
to
that those people are
Twist
listening.
the knife, Bonnie.
No,
We
I
know
don't think
who the
she'd
narc
care.
in this room is.
I don't think she'd care, and I doubt her bosses are listening. But we do have a caller on the line. I just noticed.
Well, I just wanted to say real quick, like, if you look at the suicide rates, yeah, people are sick. They need their mental health.
Yeah, I mean, like, I would
That's the
rather kill
weekend,
myself
man.
than go work at Walmart again. Kevin from Florida, are you still there? Are you on the line or on there with
I'm
us?
still here, Bonnie. I'm still here. It's good to hear you guys. They've been covering football for the past couple of weekends, and I've been
that
missing listening
sucks.
to you folks at night down here.
Who's your
What's on
team?
your
It's a
mind?
very interesting conversation. I like that stuff you guys were talking about with the Argentinian
Javier Milei.
information.
Yeah.
You know, something I had a chance when I was in a place where I really didn't want to be for a while to read a bunch of books from a place called Gutenberg.org, which I think I mentioned to you folks once before.
Yeah, that's what they give them in jail. Ian just found out about it, and it's still out there. They give it to the prisoners in jail, and it's really cool because it's everything that doesn't have copyright anymore. So you can read like.
And most importantly, it's everything you could ever want to know. For example, the book Argentina, Legend and History, which I read, is book number 49112 at Gutenberg.org, where you have 60,000 plus books that anybody can download. I actually have the text for it on my computer. 570 pages.
Yeah, it's a nice view of
1891.
what an IP-free world would look like.
And that's what it's supposed to be. Very correct. What is Ian's address up there in Keene? Do you guys have that? Because I don't.
He's
Are you not allowed to give it on the?
Well, he's not in Keene anymore since he's in jail, but I can give you the website where you can find it. It's if you go to freekeene.com.
That won't work.
Yeah, I'm not going to be able to give you the whole address over the phone.
That's
It's just
fine. Don't worry about it. I was just interested in the zip code and stuff up there in Keene to send some information up to you folks. But another book that I found, which is very apropos of your other caller, who was discussing the history, the modern history of the Democrat Party. When you go to a few books from the 1860s and 1870s, which are contemporaneous to that time frame, specifically the Reconstruction. One of the books that I read is called Picture of the Desolated States and Restoration of the Republic from 1866. Where are you going to find a book like that? Over 200 and some odd pages. Book number 55127.
And what'd you learn in that book?
These wonderful people. Yeah, what I found in that book was the actual, I think it was chapter 16 or 56. I forget which chapter it was. There was a lot of chapters in the book. Discussed when the actual Democrat Party became a force and a power behind those who thought they had the right to kill and murder by, using trees and ropes and all the rest of that stuff, and how they used this new political force to essentially force stuff that continued into the 1920s, the 1930s, the 1940s, segregation, all of that stuff that people don't get a chance to read because, as we all know, the left and the right both like to wipe away history so that people will only hear what they're told to hear. Until you read the actual black and white text, well, the computer screen on these ebooks, that all of these great volunteers that work for, I'm not trying to, be a shill for Gutenberg. I'm impressed that they have all these books.
Yeah, well, I would definitely agree. Gutenberg.org is an interesting thing. It's pretty fun because Ian and I can read. Thank you for the call, Kevin. But Ian and I, him being a prisoner right now, can read something together and then discuss it. We haven't started that yet since he's gotten actually a fair amount of books sent to him. And thank you to anyone who has sent him books because that's one of his only things to do. He also has kind of like a friend in there who has a Wall Street Journal. Is that the expensive one?
Probably.
He has a Wall Street Journal subscription. I think he has both. Okay. And he's sharing them with Ian. So Ian's keeping up with those, and he's even giving me some show prep that he's wanted me to cover.
Nice.
So yeah, it has that to do in there. But moving on back to this article.
Also, just pirate books, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Just find the pirate site for all the books and audio books if you're not in jail.
Well, I mean, just to tag on to what he was saying there at the end, a lot of people don't realize that there's a direct connection between the Ku Klux Klan and the Democratic Party, where the KKK was essentially the militant arm of that political party. And they really are doing the same thing that they used to do, just in a slightly different way.
Now they just call them Antifa.
Right. Instead of considering black people to be, awful, horrible, dangerous people, we must consider them people who can't possibly get along on their own without our help.
They say it.
Yeah.
They tweet that out.
Right.
As if it's nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just different kinds of racism.
Yep. I've always heard that the Ku Klux Klan was part of the Democratic Party when it first came out. The main thing
Check
is...
the wiki. It's true. Wikipedia says so.
I believe it totally. The main thing is just being part of one or the other of those sides. You're just, asking those in power to take from others and give to you and your group, and it's just kind of gross no matter which side you're coming from. So I don't know, I don't have a favorite side, but we were talking about people not being in the mood to work and the consequences that is coming out with for employers, and I do feel bad for them, honestly. Like, as much as I was like complaining about jobs, like I do feel bad for people who are just trying to run their businesses and stuff like this happening now.
Don't feel bad. Because there's motivation and incentives to get people to show up for work. And if people are calling out sick or using an abundance of time or quitting the job, right, they're improperly motivated and incentivized, right? Like I talked to my boss about this because we run a remote crew of workers that do like telemarketing in general, right? And he goes, like, did you know that, you know, at some point money stops being a motivator? So we got to like give these people something else, you know, to motivate them to work. I go, yeah, that's for like wealthy people. Right. At some point, money stops being a motivator, but we pay like very low rates comparatively to other places. Right. Money's the motivator.
Yeah. Money's the motivator.
If you're like entry level, money's the motivator.
Yeah. And if you ask people, almost exclusively, they will say, yeah, I don't care about the benefits. I don't care about the holiday sick paid leave. I
pizza
care
parties.
about getting, pizza parties. Good Lord.
Is that what he's asking?
I care about money.
We've ordered pizza, but our staff is mostly remote, so pizza party doesn't really work.
Oh, yeah.
But my point is, like, at some point when you're wealthy enough, money stops being a motivator.
Yeah.
Right? It's marginal utility at that point. Like, we'll give you an extra $500 this year. Like, I don't really need the extra $500. All my bills are paid. I got what I want. I want the time off.
Right.
In lieu of the $500. Right. Like, my time is more valuable than that, and that is not true at the entry-level positions that most of the Generation Z is starting to find themselves in as they enter the workforce.
Right.
And the money that they're making, as noted, is highly inflated. They're getting no value for it, right? They're not going to go anywhere, you know, from those positions because there's no room, you know. There's no room
but that's
up
kind of
because
why
everyone's
I feel
taken apart.
Bad for employers because a lot of it isn't their fault. Like, if they're paying a correct wage, it's going to be the wrong wage like in a month with inflation.
Then give people a raise in a month.
Yeah, I guess you just keep giving them raises. I've never ran my own business, but
I mean, you at some point you can't, right? And then you just go out of business, or you deal with this, right?
Well, and unfortunately, what tends to happen is that people are used to paying a certain amount for a certain employee, and they're not willing to give them that raise because, why should I? And what happens is, when the money gets printed and all the prices have gone up, that employee then has to quit that job, go somewhere else because they're not used to paying them that.
Yep.
And then it all starts over again later on when we've printed more money.
I've suggested that too. I'm like, you cannot replace me for the price you're paying me.
Right.
No one applying for my job now will take the wage that I accepted a year ago.
And the other thing about it is, like, there aren't that many people out there working, like, at all. My sister got a job within, like, 3 days of getting here. Then she got hired at another job. And then the first job was, like, competing, like, saying, wait, don't quit. We'll do this. And she ended up going with the other one anyway. Like, she kind of has, like, the pick of the job. So if one of them is
unemployment is low in New Hampshire.
Yeah. Well, really?
Yep.
Well, it's weird because there's tons of help wanted signs and she's just getting any job she wants.
Right. Because unemployment is low. So there's an excess amount of jobs.
Oh, yeah.
So because there's an excess amount of jobs, right, people like your sister who are applying, right, if company A wants her services, they have to take her away from company B because there's not enough people looking for jobs in New Hampshire at the moment.
It's just like if you're going to do crappy things, like have her be there at 6 a.m. just because you guys want to leave at 8 p.m. every night, like this grocery store she's working for right now, everyone is out. Everyone in the building is gone by 8 p.m., but they get there at 6 a.m. to start stocking things that have just been sitting there all night. Yep. Why don't you just stay till 10? No one wants to wake up at 6 a.m., so she's probably going to quit that job because that just sucks so bad.
Right. And so in her situation, right, she is sitting in the power for negotiating.
Right.
She can demand the hours she wants, she could demand the pay she wants, or they don't get her services.
Right.
And if she's worth it, they pay. If not, she goes somewhere else and they'll be happy to have her because she's got experience and whatever and doing whatever thing. There's, again, the unemployment being low and the jobs so abundantly available means that to get the highest quality individuals here in New Hampshire, you got to buy them from somebody else. You got to convince them to leave their current job and give them enough to take yours.
Yeah, and unfortunately, a lot of businesses just won't be proactive on these things.
Right.
They will only start to change things when it becomes an emergency. Like if your company can't replace you at what they're paying you, they still won't pay you more.
Right.
They'll just wait until it's a crisis because you've left. Then they end up having to pay more than you were going to ask anyway.
Right. And the company that I work at is facing that exact scenario in a different department.
Well, and this is it's a recurring problem of all of humanity, that we tend not to make the changes that would be beneficial when they're easy to make. We only start to move after it's a crisis.
The other type of thing that it seems like people do a lot, which is so dumb, but I see it time and time again, is just like go the cheapest route when you know that in more like when you're buying a product, like, oh, I could buy the best version of this, a medium one or a crappy one, and like going with the crappy one just because it's least expensive, but you'll have to buy it again, when it breaks.
This is a problem with poverty, right? I'm at a place in my life now that I can afford good things. So my mentality is buy once, cry once. Right? I will buy the top of the line. I will keep it forever. Right? You can't do that if you're broke and poor. Right? You buy what you can afford, and then it breaks, and then you have to spend more money because you didn't have enough up front to get the good stuff. And that's a poverty cycle of its own. Right. Well, why don't you just get the good stuff the first time? Because you couldn't afford it the first time.
Right.
You could only afford this, and now you can only afford this again. And you never cycle out of it as long as they're inflating it away and keeping everyone poor.
And this article does kind of immediately go to insulting young people. It says, and unlike older workers who might have been loath to call in sick for fear of seeming weak or unreliable, younger workers feel more entitled to take full advantage of the benefits they've been given.
Yeah.
Executives...
How dare you feel entitled to what we offered you?
Right.
Different job market. Right? Older workers, they needed to keep that job. They only had one job their whole life. They retired. They got a pension.
Right.
Right? You suffered through all that so you could retire in 20 years.
Yeah, and they expected their company to be loyal to them. It is absolutely mind-blowing.
Well, back then they were. Right? You got your 20 years, you got your watch, you got a pension, and you were retired by the time you were 45. Right?
Yeah, whereas the modern world, like the closest you're going to get is they're going to keep you for 19 years, then fire you so they don't have to give you a watch.
The world has changed. And knowing that, right, millennials go like, well, I'm not going to stay 19 years knowing that they're going to dispose of me at the end. I'm just going to take full advantage of everything they offer until they stop offering, and then I'll go someplace else and do the same there.
It says, so far this year, 30% of white-collar workers with access to paid leave have taken sick time, up from 21% in 2019. According to data from payroll and benefits software company Gusto, employees between ages 25 and 34 are taking sick days most often, with their use rates jumping 45% from before the pandemic. Some employers, such as Stellantis, complain such worker absences are driving up the costs. The Detroit car maker has repeatedly brought up the issue as contract talks with the United Auto Workers proceed, saying it lost 10.9% of hourly worker time in 2022 because of unplanned absenteeism.
That almost seems like scapegoating the workers for prices that are going to have to go up in the future. Right? They won't blame the government because they're getting the cushy government benefits and handouts.
Right.
Right? And they can't blame the customers because, hey, that's a bad marketing strategy. But it's the workers' fault that our prices are going up. If we could keep our costs down and they would show up to work, then you would get a more cost-effective and efficient vehicle.
I mean, it's almost like those workers are motivated by higher costs.
Go figure.
It says, before the pandemic, Darren Smith wrestled through any illness. At one point, the 50-year-old project manager fell asleep at work while on medication for a shattered ankle, waking up to the keyboard indentations on his face. Then on 2020, he was laid off, and that was his epiphany. The thing about it is, maybe one good thing about COVID was people realizing, maybe if I'm sick, I should stay home because spreading sickness is bad. Like, I think it's so stupid when people get actually contagiously sick and go to work where other people are.
It is. If you get sick, stay home and wash your hands.
Gotta get the paycheck. Can't afford to miss a day, man.
Thank you for listening to Free Talk Live. It's Talk Radio you control, and we'll be back tomorrow. Peace.
Join liberty-minded voluntarists, anarchists, and libertarians from June 13th through the 16th for the 8th annual Fork Fest at Rogers Campground in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. Fork Fest is a fork of the Porcupine Freedom Festival, which has sold out in recent years. Fork Fest happens the weekend before the Porcupine Freedom Festival. Fork Fest is decentralized, which means that there's no ticket cost and no one is in charge. All you have to do to join the fun is reserve your camping site, RV site, or motel